Eunice School District Board of Education meeting for February 24, 2025. Can I have a motion? Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Cerrone?
Here.
Mr. Gatewood?
Present.
Ms. Johnson? Present. Dr. Murillo?
Present.
Mr. Ploger?
Present.
Ms. Simulton?
Present.
Ms. Venmus?
Present.
Our student board members, Collie Parnell?
Present.
And Hope Rie.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, board. Tonight is one of our favorite evenings of the month, which is our Pride Recognition. I want to invite Executive Director of Schools, Mr. Francis, and also thank our communications team for helping rally this evening's event.
Thank you, Dr. Kilgotti. Tonight, the Board of Education acknowledges Pride winners from Grant Park, Homestead, the Wheatlands, and Eastview Academy for the month of February. Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education began this program 9 years ago to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across the district. We would like to thank our generous district partners, Chick-fil-A, Culver's, Imagination Print and Design, Huntington Learning Center, Serve Bank, and The Scoop for helping to make this program a success. We would also like to thank all those who nominated individuals for consideration. Awardees, it's almost your turn. After your name is called and we share your nomination, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Kilgotti, and then wait until the rest of the individuals from your school have been called up. First of all, we have Grand Park Elementary. The first is a kindergarten teacher, Lauren Breston. Lauren, come on up. Lauren has stepped into her role as a kindergarten teacher this year with an emphasis on forming strong relationships with her students. A nominator said, quote, Mrs. Breston has a natural talent for creating a warm and welcoming classroom where every child feels safe, valued, and excited to learn. Additionally, Lauren has been intentional while integrating the new ELA curriculum, creatively using engaging materials in a way that is accessible for all of her students. Congratulations, Lauren. Next up, we have Rachel Fitzgerald, first grade teacher. Rachel is passionate about her work, cultivating a nurturing classroom environment for all her students. Her dedication is evident in everything she does. One nominator said, quote, beyond her incredible work with students, Mrs. Fitzgerald is a true cornerstone of our school community. Her kindness and support for fellow staff members is appreciated by those around her. Congratulations, Rachel. And finally, from Grand Park, Connie Harrison, Principal Secretary. Referred to as a hero by her nominators, Connie works hard to help ensure everything runs smoothly throughout the school day. She brings positivity to her building and demonstrates admirable precision and commitment. Quote, whether it's organizing the day-to-day operations of the school with precision or stepping in as a buddy and mentor for students who need extra help, she does it all with a smile and a heart full of care. Congratulations, Connie. At this time, we'd like to invite any Grand Park administrators and district administrators who are present to come forward and join the awardees, the board, and Dr. Kilgotti for a couple pictures.
Grand Reserve. Right. That's funny. What did I say? Grand Reserve. Grand Park. That's fantastic.
And while they're doing pictures, let's get one more round of applause for Grand Park Pride winners. All right, our next spotlight school is Homestead Elementary School. Our first winner is kindergarten teacher Julie Rinaldi. Julie works to create a nurturing environment for all of her students. She goes above and beyond to connect with students and ensure they feel supported in their learning journey. Quote, she demonstrates a genuine passion for teaching kindergarten, fostering a love for learning in her students through creative and engaging activities. Congratulations, Julie. And now we got first grade teacher Valerie Setti. Valerie makes learning fun for her students. She cares deeply for each of her students, past, present, and future. Valerie acknowledges the uniqueness of all of her students and develops plans for individual growth. As shared by a nominator, quote, Mrs. Setti is a staunch advocate for her students and is endlessly creative when it comes to teaching her class. Congratulations, Valerie. And finally, building nurse, Susan Becker. Susan carries herself with a joy that makes all welcome. She supports her building, responding to the individual needs of each student. One nominator stated, quote, Nurse Susan is always available to support and goes the extra mile to build relationships with students, staff, and all of our families. Her dedication to her role is appreciated by Homestead staff and parents. Congratulations, Susan. At this time, any building administrators who would like to come up for a photo opportunity, come on up. All right, let's give one more round of applause for our Pride winners from Homestead Elementary. Next up, we have the Wheatlands Elementary School. First up from the Wheatlands is social worker Carly Bieritz. Known for her advocacy for students, Carly is passionate about educating her school community in a number of ways. She works professionally with both students and families, ensuring they have care and resources that they need. Quote, she is a safe harbor for her students and staff members. One nominator said, Carly is a leader who collaborates well with others to ensure the best for students. Congratulations, Carly. Next up, we have a board-certified behavior analyst, Katie Todd. Katie works to understand and provide for the unique needs of every student she encounters. She collaborates well with teachers and is very knowledgeable in her area. If she doesn't know the answer to something, she sets out to learn and share her research with others. As one nominator shared, her approach consistently demonstrates a commitment to finding the best path forward, a particularly crucial quality given the unique attributes presented by diverse learners. Congratulations, Katie. And lastly, from the Wheatlands building nurse, Raina Elkar-Tabani. Raina cares deeply for all students at the Wheatlands and puts serious effort into her professional development. She puts a priority on safety and works hard to ensure students are cared for beyond the concern that may have brought them to the nurse's office. Her dedication to her role is evident in the rapport she has developed with the entire Wheatlands community. Congratulations, Raina. And we need building administration up for pictures. Congratulations, Wheatlands. One more round of applause for our Wheatlands Pride winners. Our final building celebration for this evening, we move on to Eastview Academy School. First of all, we have special education teacher Michael Folsom. Michael is creative in finding ways to motivate all of his students. In addition to empowering students in the classroom, he serves as a Special Olympics soccer and basketball coach. As shared by a nominator, he also makes a positive impact on employees by ensuring they are celebrated for their achievements and their hard work is acknowledged within our building. Congratulations, Michael. Next up from Eastview, physical education teacher Jack Marta. Jack is dedicated to helping all students succeed. He is flexible with his plans and supportive of fellow staff members. Quote, he actively participates in PE activities with our students, increasing their engagement and desire to excel. Jack also works yearly to raise funds for new equipment and opportunities for the students at Eastview Academy. Congratulations, Jack. And our last winner of the evening is certified nurse Celine Gonzalez Moreno. Despite being a district staff member for just 2 years now, Celine demonstrates great leadership on nursing and special education teams. The students she serves rely on her. Celine is ready to jump in and help in any situation. As the nominator shared, Nurse Celine always looks for the bright side and shares her joy with every staff, every student, and every family every day. Congratulations, Celine. And we need Mrs. Sulkson up for some pictures. All right, one more final round of applause for Eastview Academy and all of our February Pride winners. Honorees, please proceed out into the hall. We will have some group photos out in the hallway. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
This is, we're doing some action items first, and then we're gonna do some more later. Oh, okay. Am I supposed to be handing these out? Is it, what's it called? You're voluntold?
Yeah, windshield.
I'll be at Meyer putting them on windshields. Okay, guys, we're gonna do 2 action items. Before we're, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. 5.1, action item, approval of district administrator contracts. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the district administrator contract as discussed and presented.
Second.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Dr. Murillo,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
I wanted to go ahead and explain why I'm voting no. My vote has zero to do with Dr. Mitchell. I happen to think she's an incredible educator and administrator. What I'm here to talk about, though, is having the benefits of a fully certified HR professional on staff. That includes managing complex employment laws, employee relations, and recruitment strategies. As a certified HR professional, it can implement strategies to better enhance employee engagement, performance management, and professional development. A certified HR professional will ensure that policies are applied consistently across the organization, minimizing favoritism or bias. The consistency helps maintain fairness and clarity and establishes trust. With increasingly complex employment laws, the need for next-level HR guidance to navigate legal issues is becoming more and more evident. I've also seen it firsthand in the school district, and I implore our leadership to continue to move forward with fully certified HR professionals. Thank you. No.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Oh, we're done. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we had one more person. Okay, motion passes 7-0. 6-1, I'm sorry.
Madam President, may I have a minute?
Yes.
Dr. Zwemke, you want to open up?
Yes, good evening, Board. Tonight we are very excited to bring Dr. Markeisha Mitchell as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources that you just approved. Thank you very much for that. Let's give her a round of applause. Dr. Mitchell currently serves as our Executive Director of High Schools after a successful administrative career in multiple states, including Georgia and Illinois. She is remarkable throughout the interview process, led by Dr. Kincaid and Mr. Obafemi, and supported by Dr. Kelgati and many stakeholder groups. We are really proud of her strengths of systems, collaboration, interdependence, and problem solving are aligned with the goals of the successful candidate to continue to support human resources throughout our system. So once again, a round of applause to Dr. Markeisha Mitchell.
Okay.
Okay, action item 5.2, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed and presented.
Second.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And with that, good evening. We want to welcome Ms. Bryn Patterman. Would you please stand? She'll be stepping into the role. Yes. Of Executive Assistant for the Superintendent as well as Secretary for the Board of Education. And we just want to thank you for joining our team. And her start date will start in May. And official start will be in mid-May. So we want to thank you again.
Okay, on behalf of, or 6.1, public comment. So on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our members of the public and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Residents interested in speaking to the Board of Education this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the Secretary to the Board. When the Secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person, and no responses to your questions are permitted. Comments should address the Board of Education as a whole and not be directed to an individual board member, audience, or staff member. The Board of Education will not address concerns against individual employees. Rather, a complaint against an employee must be in writing and signed by the person who makes it, and the Board of Education will refer any such complaint for appropriate review. Campaigning or advocating for any candidate is inappropriate during public comment. Comments should be limited to business before the school district and not political advocacy. Follow-up to your questions or concerns will be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Katie Hayden?
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, it's on. I come to you today as a parent in District 308. My name is Katie Hayden. I know our district has been great about supporting unionized education for teachers and staff at District 308, but I really feel there is an opportunity to bring innovation when it comes to post-secondary education. I could see District 308 welcoming other unions within this sector to support our students in their future. I come to you today because I would like to see, when it comes to committed to this university or this college, committed to career readiness. We do it for our athletes, our musicians, our artists, culinary, and IT work, but this still constantly is underserved for these students who choose different educational paths. Today I would like to give you some numbers to just kind of, that way you guys could go on and you could go to Facebook or you could go to Instagram and be able to see what I'm talking about. If you go to OHS Athletics, 2.1K followers, 3.2 likes. Oswego Fine Arts, 1.9K followers. Oswego High School Band, 1.1K followers. Oswego East Band, 1K followers. Oswego High School, 4.6 followers. Oswego East High School, 3.4K followers. If we go to OHS Student Services, or what they referred us to go to, which was OHS STU for post-secondary, 222 followers. 105 that are actually following, and 42 posts. I could not find any committed sign days for unionized trades or post-secondary education. I was told to go to the Senior Celebration Day link, and I could find it there, and it was just a 30-second video. I know we can do better than this to serve our students at ST308. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our superintendent to provide his superintendent report.
All right, good evening, board. This evening, today is a huge day for our district. It's really the culmination of months and months of listening and collaboration that I would say has really challenged all of us to really learn to better listen to each other, think about the way in which we operate, and take some next steps. So tonight you are going to hear the first formal presentation of the draft of the 25-28 strategic plan. Big round of applause for all those who are here to present. Truly thank you all for, and really thank you to the community for being part of designing our next chapter of our story. On a different note, I just want to appreciate some really important information that came up last week that many of you heard in some reports that came from me. In our schools, we often, and it is an important slogan, we say, when we see something, we say something. And this really isn't just a slogan. It's a shared responsibility that whether we observe, hear, or read something concerning, we must report it immediately. Every report, when it comes to things that have significant concerns, are investigated, and we are always looking to enhance the safety of our learning communities. By working together, we can swiftly prevent serious incidents and ensure that the well-being of our students, of our staff, remain a top priority. We always work to collaborate closely with law enforcement to proactively identify potential threats and respond swiftly to any reports or incidents. Lastly, I want to thank our teams that were involved and our police department for really taking the after-action reports seriously. When every one of those scenarios, and as I shared in my letter last week, we always want to make sure we make time to reflect, because there is no perfect scenario. The perfect scenario is improvement and safety. And so we are always taking each one of these incidents when they do arise with the utmost seriousness, and where there is opportunity for growth, we will take it because our students deserve it, and that is our commitment. Equally important is really the culture we create for our students. And part of that is really ensuring that we are working together when, whether it's your child comes home and says, hey, something happened in my classroom, and you wonder about it. Is that accurate information accurate, right? Do I email the superintendent or do I email the teacher, say, hey, Johnny came home today and had a question, right? And so really understanding where in our systems, whether it's where is that point of seeking clarity regarding information or misinformation that arises. Sometimes it's at the level of your son or your daughter or your child says something to you. This happens to me every day. I have a third grader, so I hear lots of stories every day. There are moments where I have to decide, am I emailing the teacher, the assistant principal, the principal, or Pedro Martinez, right? So I have to always think about where am I entering with that information. Now, there are lots of ways where we see that information that also moves on. We've become a community where we rely on social media, right? That is how we gain our trust, we gain confidence, we use that as a support system. There are also times when misinformation shows up on social media, and we have to think about how that information shows up. In the last couple weeks, I've heard situations where somebody talked about threatening, it gave the impression of a threat on social media, and we had to investigate it, right? We've had hoaxes. And so when misinformation shows up on social media, we have to look to ways to disrupt this information and think about how we have to look to ways to make sure that information doesn't distract from the work that's happening in our schools, which is really creating a place of safety, truth, and academic success. I would ask that anyone, when you see things that are confusing, please reach out to the right place to get clarity about those things. Our goal is always to be fair and give feedback and to give information as best as we can when we can. There are certain scenarios when there's an active investigation. We might not be able to give everything, but reaching out never hurts, and for all of our information. And we want to address misinformation as quickly as possible in order to address the core issues. We have lots of channels for this, and we thank all of you for reaching out to those proper and appropriate channels. Lastly, this evening, I want to share something about some really important there are several upcoming events. We have our Parent University at Boulder Hill, which is beginning on February 27th at 5 p.m. We have the Speak and Spark event, and this is going to be our student-led roundtable discussion hosted by the School District 308 Board of Education. This will take place at Plank Junior High and led by our board representatives, student board members, so thank you. On March 3rd, we have our KinderQuest Fair, an expo for incoming kindergartners and their families, which will take place at Oswego East High School from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 11th. Student Coalition presents Amplify, Claiming Our Space, where students will take the stage to showcase what makes them unique. And this is going to be at Oswego High School, not East, where it was last year. And next, we have several area candidate events that are taking place in the coming weeks. Some of those include Parents for Education and Global Success. We'll host an event on March 14th. We will have this information, many of these events. We also will have the League of Women Voters, who will host an online event on March 19th. We have an online student panel Tuesday, March 18th. And the Bilingual Advisory Committee will host a forum at Hunt Club Elementary School on Tuesday, March 20th, which is an opportunity to hear all our candidates who are running for the Board of Education. Ms. Camitas, this information will be on the website for anybody. Oh, great. It's already on our website. We want to thank all our candidates for their dedication and service. I'll turn it over now to board. We have had a lot of exciting things, so I invite board members to share any additional exciting events.
The Oswego Co-op finished 5th as a team at the IHSA Girls State Final Gymnastics Meet this past weekend. Ava Sullivan won the state title in vault, and took 2nd place on floor, 3rd on beam, and 5th all around. Yeah. Sam Phillip. It was impressive. Thank you, Jen, for sending that to us. Sam Phillip took 5th place in vault and 6th on floor. Congratulations to Ava, Sam, and the entire team.
Braden Swanson of Oswego High School took 6th place in his weight class, 144 pounds. I haven't seen that number for a long time. At the IHSA Boys Individual State Final Wrestling Tournament. Congratulations, Braden.
The Oswego East High School girls bowling team took 6th place at the IHSA Girls State Final Bowling Tournament this past weekend. Congratulations on a great season.
The OEHS and OHS journalism programs flourished at the Southwest Prairie Conference Championship. OE took 1st place and OH took 4th. Congratulations to student journalists.
The co-op boys swimming and diving team took 3rd place at sectionals this past weekend. This performance secured their spot at the state competition. Congratulations.
Dr. Amy Howerton, English Department Chair at OHS, and my friend was selected as a finalist for the 2025 Golden Apple Award for Excellence in Teaching. Over 470 nominations were submitted for this prestigious award, and Amy is one of 30 finalists. Congratulations.
I always feel like this time of year we totally need to celebrate, right? Coming out of these cold days, and there were several SD308 members who have been named recipients of this year's Illinois State Board of Education, those who excel, and Teacher of the Year awards. Congratulations to the following individuals: Amy Regas, OEHS classroom teacher; Maureen Terwelt, OHS classroom teacher; Demanjit Puri, Plank Junior High early career educator; Deborah Rabick, Grand Park Elementary / Murphy Junior High student support personnel; and Dr. Adam B. Rusick, Director of Human Resources, School Administrator.
Okay, now we'll move to 7.2. We'll ask our student board members to give their report.
Okay, so we are just a few weeks away from Amplify, which will take place on March 13th, a moment where student voices take center stage, ideas turn into actions, and we showcase the power of collaboration in our school community.
Last Friday, we came together in a coalition meeting that helped us solidify our vision and strengthen our bonds. We gathered ideas, discussed what we would present, and most importantly, create a comfortable space where everyone felt heard. This sense of unity and shared purpose is exactly what Amplify is about. Students taking ownership of their experiences and claiming their space, which is the theme of Amplify.
As we move forward, our presentation continues with an important event on March 3rd, the student-led board Speak and Spark. This discussion will allow us to dive deeper into crucial topics, particularly the relationships between students and teachers. This conversation directly connects to our planning for Amplify, ensuring that the discussions we bring to the table are meaningful, relevant, and impactful.
Additionally, as your student elective Board of Education representatives, we are excited to invite you to another key event, a student-led panel discussion with the SD308 student board candidates. On Tuesday, March 18th, we'll be hosting this discussion and give students a direct opportunity to engage with the individuals who seek to represent us. A social reception with pizza, yay, will take place from 5:30 to 6 p.m., followed by the panel discussion from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Moderated by student board members, this event will feature questions crafted by high school students to reflect our collective concerns and priorities.
Leaders from various clubs and organizations across the district will be invited to attend in person, and the event will also be live streamed for the public's viewing. This is a chance for students to not only learn about the candidates' visions, but also to make our voices heard as we shape the future of our school community.
So, as we prepare for these important events, let's continue to support one another, bring forward new ideas, and ensure that Amplify 2025 truly reflects the voice of our students. Thank you.
A Plank Junior High. Yes.
No problem.
Oh, that one's not open to the public.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Candidate forum is?
Unfortunately, it's not brought to the public, but will be live streamed for everyone to view. The student board.
Let me just jump in. So what we decided is that they're going to moderate it with the potential candidates or with the candidates, and then they are inviting other student members from various groups at both high schools to come in and do a meet and greet. But then alongside of that, we're working with building administration and communications to get their questions. So there'll be tons of questions that students will be able to submit, and then we want them to be able to view it live stream. March 3rd is in person, and it's at Plank, and we need you to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, ladies? Is that it?
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 7.3, board member comments. Any board member comments? Who would like to start?
You always look my way.
Because you always got lots to say.
I'll start. It's kind of hard to do. It seems kind of weird doing this on a day when it's like 50-something degrees outside, but I just want to thank Mr. Bell, Mr. Queen, and everybody in operations who, 1 week ago today, we were really cold.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for all the hard work. It's not an easy job, and no matter, as we discussed, no matter what kind of call, whether school, whether it's e-learning, or whether students are in class, somebody's going to be upset. And nothing is a perfect solution, but we always try to maintain the safety of the students. So whatever decision is made, just know that it's made with a great deal of thoughtfulness prior to and a lot of hard work. It can't be easy starting buses at 4:30 to get them all warmed up. I don't know, I was asleep. Again, I just don't think it's said enough. So I wanted to give props to all of you people who kept us running during that time. Make it while you can get it. The other thing I wanted to say was Saturday there was an event by the robotics team over at Bednarsik, and there were a couple of speakers at the beginning, and unfortunately, we kind of missed the speaking positions. Dr. Kelgatti and I were busy giving blood. Dominic was off.
At a blood drive.
Yeah. Yeah, at a blood drive, yeah. Okay, we'll clarify.
Not somewhere else.
Yeah. We had needles in our arm, no. But Dominic and I did get there later. We did, and again, I've said this before, these kids are so amazing, so I won't go into all the details, but all of the stuff that they do goes right over my head. But they did present us with this plaque that I'm going to turn over, and it was basically a thank you from them for the support that 308 has given them this particular year. As usual, their expectation is to go to Worlds again in Texas. We are one of the few teams that kind of plans beyond nationals and actually goes to Worlds. So again, great time, and I'm going to pass this over to you.
Thank you.
Either that or it's going up in my living room.
I love it. This looks very exciting. Thank you.
Yep.
Can I piggyback that? Because
Sure.
I actually had that on my list too, and unfortunately I had a college visit this weekend. But I did. It was interesting. What's that?
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, fortunately, but I'll be honest with you, I try not to miss that event, so it's kind of unfortunate that I can't clone myself and be in two places at once. And I actually did receive a text from a parent saying, "Where's the board at?" And I explained the blood drive and so forth. But I wanted to say the reason I wanted to piggyback that is say thank you to Representative Kifowit and also Bill Foster for coming out. And I know they were here and they spoke, so appreciate them doing those things. And I think it was called the WOW event, right? WOW. Yeah. The other piece, I'll be quick, is tomorrow is Tuesday. Listen, I'd like to lecture our country. It's 2025. We still vote on Tuesdays. I really don't understand that. I really feel like it's an antiquated piece at this point. But nonetheless, hey, many of the people in our district will have the option to go to the polls tomorrow and vote. And as I try to always remind people, you do not vote once every 4 years. You do not even vote once every 2. Well, I should say you could, but you have the opportunity to not just vote once every 4 years or 2 years, but in fact, you have the opportunity in this country of ours to vote at least once every year. And this year, some of us get the opportunity twice. There's tomorrow. Aurora and Oswego, I believe, both have primaries, and then we'll do it again in a little over a month, April 1st. So don't forget to go exercise your vote. My wife and I went together yesterday. Yeah, went down to the county seat, and we cast votes together. So don't forget, please make sure your voices are heard.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, 8.1. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 8.1 minutes from the Board of Education meeting on February 10th, 2025, open and closed session, and 8.2 to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district.
Second.
Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson? Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, good evening. I want to invite Ms. Amanda Sitar and Mr. Obafemi. Any updates regarding our financial profile and information?
Thank you, Dr. Kogati. I want to start out this evening by recapping a meeting that we had with a legislator this afternoon, where the legislator talked about the governor's
Bring your mic a little closer, yes, sir.
the governor's budget message and the governor's appropriation to the legislator for fiscal year 26. I mean, there was some good information that I'm happy to share. The fact that the state will fully fund EBF, evidence-based funding. And evidence-based funding has been a change maker for us because we're tier 1 in the district. So the governor's appropriated $350 million, which means that we should be able to receive the same amount that we expect to get in fiscal year 26. That's the good message. The challenging part of the governor's recommendation to the legislature is the fact that mandated categorical funds are being prorated. They've actually been prorated over the last few years. And for example, in this current fiscal year, transportation, regulated transportation, special ed transportation, instead of us receiving 100% of the expenditure that we incur, this year is being prorated. Regular ed is being prorated at 79%. That is how much we get. Not 100% of the money we're expecting that we spend, we only get 79%. For special ed transportation, the proration in fiscal year 25 is 69%. But it gets worse in fiscal year 26. The budget that was presented by the governor to the legislature reduces the proration for regular ed from 79% to 69%. And for special education, it goes down from 69% to 61%. So as it stands right now, and I think I've talked to the board and the public about this, transportation is the one fund that is the most challenging for us as a district. The one fund that consistently we've had a deficit. And the latest projection that I will present to the board next month shows transportation deficit growing from now till 2030, which is 5 years from now, to be about $26 million if we don't do anything about it, just in that fund. And the proration, based on the recommendation of the governor's budget, is not going to help that. That hole just becomes bigger. So it was imperative before that we do something about transportation. It's become doubly, triply imperative that we address that now, because we have a bigger hole than what our projections were to begin with. Now, what I would like to talk about now is the financial information that is in the package. If you look at the first item there, we have the fund balance I want to point out that the fund balance is out of January 31st, and which is gone down because this didn't include the bond payment of about $30 million that we made after the 31st of January. So, and also the expenses of an additional $30 million in payroll and other related operational costs. So if you take that off that 116, we're closer to about $60 million. So this is the time of the year where it gets tough as far as cash is concerned. And the reason being that we get paid the majority of the money that we get in the district twice a year. We get the first installment in June of the property tax extension. We get the second installment in September, and we have to pretty much make it last for the balance of the year. What we've been trying to do is do a better job of projecting our cash flow. And this is tied to if you look at our investment statement too, you will see that last month, it was much higher than where we are right now. We had a lot of investment that we placed, short-term investment and some long-term investment. We had to liquidate that to be able to make payment on that $30 million bond that we have to pay on. So if you also notice, we don't have a lot of investment right now because at the end of on the 19th of the month, we only have $58 million left. So we are really not in a position to engage in long-term investment 3 months or longer because we need that cash to pay immediate expenses that comes due. So that's why we don't have any. So what we have some investment, the liquid investment, that pays about 4.2% interest, as opposed to a longer-term investment that will pay us more because we need that cash for day-to-day living. But I'm happy to say that we've been monitoring our cash flow, as I mentioned earlier. We met with our financial advisor last Friday, and we will be able to get through June when we get our first installment of the 2024 property tax extension without doing a TAW. So this will be the second year in a row after 20 years of not having to do a TAW. So the other things, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I request just the interest earned?
Sure.
From whatever period to whatever period?
Actually, it's in the projection. It's in the financials.
Is it on page,
What's your document, though?
Yeah. Can
This
we
summary?
project these when we talk about them? We project them?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes. Right now, I don't know if it'll be prepared to be too small, but maybe for
You
next
do
time.
have earnings on investment.
Earning on investment under revenue. If you look under revenue.
Which page are you on, Mr.
The
Fiedler?
revenue dashboard?
Yes, the revenue dashboard. If you look at earning on investment to date, we have earned $3 million.
So that was, and that's
Year to date.
year to date since September.
Yeah, since July 1st.
Since July, okay,
Yes,
I get
July
these
1st.
dates wrong sometimes.
So-
And that's kind of a new practice.
Yes,
So $3.1 million because of a new practice.
yes, of putting our cash to work.
Can you explain that just a little bit more? what
So
you're
in
saying?
the past, what we did, we put our extra money in a savings account, essentially. But what we've done this year is since this fiscal year, we've aggressively tried to invest our money, but rest assured, we're not dabbling in anything risky because we have to follow the state law under the Illinois Municipal Investment Act. There are things that are permissible that we can invest in, such as CDs, that are actually, as long as we put less than $20,000 and $50,000 in it, is insured by a DIC. We also have investment in government agency bonds, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Treasury bonds, Treasury bills. So those, we invest in those.
So we're getting 4.2% right now currently in our,
Short-term liquid
liquid
yes.
liquid assets.
Yes.
And then you were chasing basis points by doing a laddering type of strategy.
Yes, we were.
And
when we
so
didn't
this
need
is-
all that money.
So I'm not trying to, but so over a 6-month period,
Yeah.
$3.1 million.
Yes, sir.
So this is, I mean, that's
Say it
huge.
loud.
You know, I don't, this is
And we
why
haven't
we
been
have
doing
people.
it.
Yes.
Yes, this
And
is
we
new
haven't
money
been.
that wasn't there before.
Right.
So we need to look at the revenue side that's
Right.
being generated, you know, because of these new practices. And they're far outweighing anything that any investment that we're making.
But also think
And that
about
we're able to help, you know, pay our teachers more and our TAs more and, you know.
but to
it's-
never have done this in the past.
That's what I'm saying, it's new.
Right.
It's new money. And, you know, rates were lower, but not that long ago. I mean, we could have been getting this, you know. So, and it could have been at least $1 million, you know. But now it's
Every
it's
bit,
going to be
though,
like $4 or $5
compounds and
million,
helps.
you know,
Yep.
per year.
Thank you for pointing that out.
So,
On the expenditure side, one thing I would like to point out, if you look at, on the revenue side, I'm sorry, since we're on revenue, if you see there's a difference in the memo that is included there, that we actually received $2.5 million more in revenue last year than we did this year. And most people may be wondering, federal revenue, why we got that. If you think about it, what was different last year about this year? ESSER. Last year we had ESSER, and that $2.5 million was the reimbursement that we received from ESSER at this point. This year, we don't have ESSER. That's money that we're not going to get this year.
but that was known.
Right. But I just wanted to point out that's the explanation for the variance, the $2.5 million difference. Now, on the expenditure side, what we've seen so far, if you look at it, what we project is pretty close to what we're getting. There's no big surprise. Now, if you look at other objects, if you see what we actually project and what we actually spend, there's a big variance. We're projected having to spend about 54% of our expenditure in other objects. We've only spent 49.66. And if you look at I can show this to you and let you see the cause of that variance. It's actually a timing issue. If you look at budget reports, what I'm looking at here, I don't know.
Is that number 4?
Let me see.
This guy?
This will be number 4. Thank you. You can put that. So what that is the timing of our bond payment. By this time last year, we had paid $30 million in our bond payment. We paid the bond payment after we pulled this report. So that's the difference. So it's not like we spent a whole lot more last year that we spent this year. It was just a timing of the bond payment. We have to make the bond payment. We paid it earlier last year. We paid it after. We're going to pay it after this report has been pulled. I just wanted to point that out.
Can you just real quick define what other objects?
Those are bond payments.
Oh, they are the bond payments.
Those are the bond
Okay.
payments that I
Thanks.
just mentioned. So the other thing I want to talk about the revenue, talk about the expenditure, is CPI. CPI, I put a memo there every month for us to track CPI because CPI drives the amount of money that we get that we can levy in property taxes. So it also governs how much we spend for things such as electricity and other things that we spend money on as a district. And as we're seeing now, CPI has actually gone down a little bit over the last few months, but it's then coming back up again. What it essentially is showing that inflation is still sticky. It hasn't gone anywhere. So if you look at the last 12 months from January of 2024 to January of 2025, CPI is actually 3%. So it's actually, if we remember that the goal is for us to have CPI at 2%, that's the target, so it's 3%. So we're not out of the woods yet as far as inflation is concerned. And it impacts us in how we spend money and the things that we spend money on. That's why I think it's important that we track that and we keep that in our sight. Those are the things I wanted to point out as the financial is concerned. The other thing I would like for Ms. Satar to talk about fees collection, please.
Thank you. So this is a report that we should kind of get used to seeing.
That would be,
9.
yeah, the last one, yes, number 9.
Okay, so this is a comparison at the same time last year compared to this year, what we've charged versus what we've collected. You can see the bottom line is significantly lower in comparison to last year. We're at about only 71% collection rate, whereas this time last year we had an 85.6% collection rate. You know, we're not really sure why people aren't paying their fees, but it is an issue. It's an issue with food payment too, meals.
Amanda, we know why. I mean, just to be honest, because the legislation was passed about 3 years ago that prevented the district from taking actions to collect fees owed to the district by families. And I think the word has gotten around, and the level of collection is suffered as a result of that. And what is important to note is that as we lose this revenue, it has to come from somewhere else.
From someplace else. in this budget.
Right, that's somewhere else in the budget. Those services still have to be provided. Those bills still have to be paid. We just have to find the money from somewhere else.
Again, I appreciate more than anything, this word is being thrown around a lot, transparency, and I am incredibly proud of the transparency that you are bringing from a financial perspective than we've ever had. And to understand where what is very hard to understand about school budgeting is it's very cyclical. Like you said, we get paid twice a year, but we have bills due every single month. So we have to pay them no matter what. And so when you put a budget together and you put a budget together to say we're going to have $3 million or $4 million in fees, but we don't collect that, you then have to go to the budget and find it from somewhere else because we still have to pay for whatever those fees are for, whether they're for activities or sports or whatever. So I really appreciate the transparency that you are continuing to bring to this. 2 things I wanted to talk. First of all, were you finished?
Yes, we are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
The other document is the activity funds by each school, the balance, how much was spent last year, how much was collected, and the balance left by each building. That's it.
I think regarding transportation, one of our core values in the district is collaboration. And I really wonder, and I'm just posing this as an idea, would it be feasible to put together a transportation task force and to bring in some people from the community, from areas of industry, parents, and so forth, to really just bring in and talk about the issues. When we had our bus situation the other day, when the buses weren't moving, you know, it was very interesting for me to see from the community, to hear ideas like, did this take place, did that take place? And there is something around, you know, collectively letting other people know what's going on, but we also have a lot of experts within our community. So I think that's something that maybe we could think about, or that, you know, if the administration could think about. One of the other things that I don't know that if we've talked about this or when we're going to talk about this or how to bring this up, but are we facing some deficits from federal funding with a new political administration? And obviously I'm only on the board for 49 more days, but who's counting? And
I can answer that question straight up.
yeah, and I think we need to have some really hard conversations right now.
The projections that we have, the 5-year projection, I was actually going to provide it today, but it was so much on the agenda with the strategic plan, we didn't want to stay here till 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So we decided to present it in March. But the projection that we have assumes $9.1 million
Wow.
a year in federal funds, which is about 4% of our revenue.
Wow.
So in real terms, that's about 130 teachers' salary. So losing that fund will be devastating financially to us as a district. So it's not small potato.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and just want to say, I'm glad you put it in terms of jobs, but the one thing, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I know I heard ever, and I would disagree, But I think there's a lesson in that piece, which is we did have a finance person who was very transparent. We lost them. They went to another district. He did a great job also of doing a lot of educating in the community, and a lot of what the community knows was due to that person. And the reason I want to mention this is because, listen, it's a tight market. You know this. I mean, it's a tight market finding good finance people. And so when you get one, please, community, hold on, because it's a tight market in a lot of areas right now. So that's not to, you're doing a great job, and so did he. And I remember at the time the discussion on the board was, well, I don't think we could pay that much. I'm like, I don't know. Kind of thinking maybe we should, but would have been a good investment. But we're happy that we have you too.
Be very careful who you're talking about.
I don't why? What?
Not our most recent.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
So, no.
Go ahead. You guys go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking about, you're very calm, and you're very,
matter of fact.
I want to say even casual about these bombs that you're dropping, right? And it's just very disconcerting to know that we could be in a situation where we need to come up with $9.1 million. And so my question to you is, how are we being proactive around that possible scenario?
We've been working on the fiscal year 26 budget, and we actually are not as far along as we will have been at this time as we were last year, because we're looking at different scenarios that we didn't have to consider last year, because we knew what the appropriation was last year, we knew how much we have to work with, and it was easier to budget. The fiscal 26 budget is a little more difficult because of the different scenario. For starters, before the governor presented his budget last week, the state was communicating a $3.16 billion deficit. And we didn't know how that would impact EBF and how that would impact mandated categorical funds. We have that now. We feel pretty sure about what we're going to get from the state. But what is not clear is what we're going to get from the federal government. And even to some extent, the appropriation that we build the fiscal year 25 current year budget on is contingent upon the federal government coming through between now and the end of this fiscal year with the money that is promised to us in federal funds. So we're looking at different scenarios when we present the budget and we present the financial projections about what we're looking at. But what we know is that if we don't get all the money that we assume we're going to get, that would be $9 million. So we have to find a way to reduce the budget proportionately to be able to operate. And that would be a significant impact on the operation of the district.
So some of the things we've done is we've built a strong connection with our senators and our legislators at the state level. And today, I was on a call with at least 10 other superintendents, and so we discussed what are the types of contingencies. So I think everybody's thinking about it. There were two senators on the House of Representative member and a senator who are very connected to what's happening. So there's a lot of strong advocacy around a contingency. So I just think that that's very important for the community to know that we're not just sitting back and waiting. This is an active situation, and we are very much connected to understanding how we will weather, kind of like with the COVID days, how do we weather a catastrophic situation like this, right? So number one. Number two, we are looking at really what our efficiencies in the system. So we're Mr. Obafemi, Dr. Zwemke, members of the senior leadership team, Dr. Kincaid, have been working very diligently to review any place and every place that we can really think about efficiencies and really thinking about how do we, every year we have natural attrition, right? We have natural attrition that happens as a result of retirements. Somebody moves out of state. Somebody decides to go work someplace else. We have those, right? So unfortunately, a lot of times when those happen, you automatically, a system may replace those, right? But are there ways that we can move diligently, strategically, where we're not impacting our schools to address some of that. Does it get to $9 million? I don't think so. No. But does it get to shortening making it a smaller gap? So we can ensure, I can assure you that those are some things that we're looking at. The last thing that we're doing is we have to think about then other more operational expenses. The board will hear from Mr. Obafemi, maybe not next week, but the meeting after one, about some of the transportation challenges. We currently, essentially, if you want to ride a bus in our district, for example, you ride a bus. There's never been a system to validate who gets to ride a bus, whether they're within the mile or not. So we spend about $1,500 per student, $1,550 actually per student, for students who are out within that mile. We are still busing students who are within the mile, who may have access to what would be realistic walking to school. We've never vetted that. The district has never vetted that. When I say we, I'm saying over the last 5 to 10 years, that's never been vetted. So we are actually engaged in the hazardous street study to ensure that we are ensuring that every child has safe passage to school, whether it's walking or transportation. Secondly, ensuring that, right now, there are places where it's very much like door to door. A bus stops here, there, 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 there. Those are natural efficiencies that would save us significant costs around that. And so those are things that will come. And we've got guests here for the strategic plan meeting, so I want to honor that. And this was not necessarily the focus, but I will say the board will hear a full, thorough review of that in a very soon time.
Is it okay if I ask my questions?
Yes, of course.
Oh, great. Thank you. So the first question is, I was looking at the CPI piece for that month, right? And I know a lot can change, right? So I'm not going to sit here and ask you to project the next 11 months. But the part that concerns me when I start seeing like a 0.5 in a month is, if you project that out, you're talking about a 6% CPI, which means that means our expenses are going to outpace what we can possibly bring in for revenues. And I think that's an important piece that people need to realize, is that we can't go above 5. So anything at 0.5 should become alarming, because 0.4, all right, you're still talking 4.8 if you project that out, but anytime it's getting 0.5 or higher, that's the piece that should alarm us, since we're capped. And so I want to make sure that was, unless you think I'm wrong.
No, you're spot on. And if you look at the driver of that 0.5, one of the key drivers, utilities, which is a big chunk of our expenses at the district. We have to buy electricity. We have to buy heating. We have to cool our buildings. So that's a big chunk of the high end of the CPI. So it directly impacts us.
And then the last
and
one.
Food is also another part. We have to buy food to feed our kids, and that's another part that is going up a lot.
Yeah. And then the last part is, and you don't have to answer this now, but I'm sitting here listening to transportation, and I'm wondering, and I think it ties into what you said, Dr. Calgatti, but I'm sitting here thinking about the options, right? And I don't know, and listen, I am not suggesting that we should have a referendum, but I've heard, like, is the referendum on the transportation end an option? Could we go electric buses? Would that be an option? And listen, I'm not saying any of these things other than this is what you hear out there. And then, of course, the cutting services, right? Like, is there an opportunity for cutting services? And I don't expect you to answer all three of those. I kind of think I know what the answers are to all three of those.
I can just say that we can't referendum our way out of the cost of transportation. It's not sustainable long term. The way we run it right now, a referendum will be a short Band-Aid, and it will come back again. So we have to right-size it the way we do transportation. What I just explained earlier, so the state only reimburses us for 3 classes of kids. Those who have special ed with transportation included in the IEP, kids who live beyond a mile and a half, and students who live in designated hazardous area. Even with those expenses, they've always prorated us. This year, they prorated us at 79%. Next year, it's going to be 69%. So it gets lower. So right off the gate, there's a hole, even if we did everything right? And in our case, we don't even limit transportation to those 3 categories. We provide transportation to everybody. So by that very nature, we're in a big hole, and the hole gets deeper. And the state is not really helping us to fill that hole.
So what I hear is that it's not necessarily cutting services to those that were obligated, but there is a, I don't want to say opportunity because that sounds terrible, but there is a situation where we could potentially see a cut to services to those that we just quite frankly can't service because of what we're bringing in, but we're not obligated to either. Okay. Thank you.
And the 9.1 million, is that Title I and Medicaid?
All federal funds. So that will be all the title funds, IDEA funds,
Okay.
and Medicare. So,
And
yeah.
Medicaid.
Yeah.
And then the other part that we can't even begin to possibly think about, but we do also apply for other federal grants. We don't know that other federal grants are going to be available and what that could also potentially.
And fortunately, we don't include those in projections.
Right.
Because all we include are what we know.
Right.
We
But what I'm
normally
saying
are
is there's
entitled to.
other revenue out there that we may also not be able to have access to because the money just, or the grants just won't be
E-rate
there.
will be one that comes to mind. E-rate will be one.
Yeah.
We normally don't include that in our projection, but that's a federal fund. And the other one that comes to mind is FCC funding for upgrade to technology. Those are grants that we ordinarily can apply for. And we don't even know that's, to your point, that's available.
Thank you, Mr. Obafemi, very much. Okay, next board, I want to invite Mr. Bell, Assistant Superintendent, to discuss the Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. I know you've got some guests with you this evening to also help with this presentation. I want to thank all the families and parents and community members and staff who really helped prepare this updated version. This is a state mandate that we are complying with this evening.
Very nice.
Good evening, Board. I'd like to introduce my counterpart here, Ms. Bailey Campbell. She's our Director of Student Services for Special Programs. Everything you have in your board packet could not have been done without her work. She worked tirelessly and diligently to make it visibly appealing, to put all of the hard work and content and take all of the changes that it took from all those engagement opportunities as we kind of go forward. So you have a couple of items in your board packet. One of those is hopefully just the summary of changes so that it's brought to you in kind of in a digestible way. Members of our student services team include myself, Ms. Bailey Campbell, Ms. Michelle Pete, our Director of Special Education for Secondary, Michael Johnson, our Director of Student Services for Elementary, and then Mike Frieders, our Coordinator for School Safety and Security. Sorry, I'm not managing the clicker well. As with everything we do, we still work to do all of our work and align that to our foundational practices. And so you can see evidence of that from high quality instruction to equity and rightful presence and effective systems and teams throughout this entire document. This document is required that we bring to you for approval each and every year and those adjustments that are made as per school code. Listening and learning through collaborative input. This is just a snapshot of those engagement opportunities and stakeholders that we've tapped into to be able to kind of edit and refine this document as it exists. We have met with the Superintendent's Advisory Group, SSAC, along with the Coalition Board for a student voice component. They were awesome, by the way. I give you kudos. Our Policy Committee, we have presented in front of our Board of Ed Policy Committee for feedback and provided a number of administrative focus opportunities and collaborative office hours for them to be able to weigh in on how this text in this document exists within the schools and how they use it to better serve our kids.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So essentially, when we took a look at this document for this upcoming school year, we wanted to kind of keep some of these priorities and focus areas in mind. First off, obviously, for those of you who have had a chance to peruse this document, it is like a 70, 80, 90. I think we've lost count at this point. It's a lot of pages. So the goal really was to try to continue to make sure that the meat of this document, if you will, was student-focused, integrating both policy, as required, but also our practice and procedure within the district. This also helps us ensure compliance with our board policy, legislative updates, and then really just making sure that it is true to what we stand for and what we believe in the district in terms of that culture, climate, and purposeful language. This year, you'll see a lot of changes in order to prioritize the continued focus on rightful presence for a variety of students in our spaces, including diverse learners and specialized programs, which we'll highlight in just a second. And then the biggest thing, again, is just that commitment to ensuring that this document continues to be more and more user-friendly. You'll notice graphics, you'll notice QR codes, and even as you kind of walk through our buildings, we start to see some of these pages taken off and put in posters on bulletin boards and in classrooms, and that's really what we want this document to be, is more than just that 90-page manual. So here I'm just going to kind of start to highlight some of the changes that are proposed within the document. So our document really is broken into two parts. The first part really focuses on policy, and then we'll kind of transition into the second part, which is more of that handbook, if you will. So the first part that I want to highlight is section 1. You will be hearing shortly from my teammates about the profile of an SD308 learner. There's a beautiful graphic that goes along with that we're going to be embedding within the introduction of our rights and responsibilities. So again, that it's living there and it's forward-facing. Section 2. This is really our student rights and student commitment section. Here we did add a section focused on safety and security within the building. Again, really focusing on that policy piece, which highlights our school safety drill plan, which is the required drills that are mandated every year. The annual review of school safety in terms of emergency response plans. And then we highlighted our school safety and security procedures for both visitors and parents. This is a section that is very common. We talk about this often, but we wanted it to make sure that it lived somewhere. Section 3 is student records. A quick addition to this section included language around parents and guardians who wanted to put a statement in their student's file in the event that they pull their students' records and they wanted to dispute something. So that was currently missing. And then we wanted to also make sure that we highlighted that there are times in which our buildings would then not be, they would be exempt from pulling student records. Our next section, section 4, minimal language changes, and then that brings us into section 5, special education and health services. So this I highlighted earlier, but we just wanted to highlight that we are proposing a title change for this section to really encompass health services, special education, and special programs. So the special programs section highlights a lot of our learners that we wanted to make sure were represented in this document, including our rights for our students who may be pregnant, hospitalized and homebound services, multilingual learners, our alternative learning program in the district, which is GOAL, our homeless and McKinney-Vento students, and also those students who may be involved in with foster care. Another thing I want to highlight real quickly about that section is we also relocated and added the suicide and depression awareness and prevention language into that section. Our team felt very strongly, in collaboration with a variety of stakeholders, that this really needed to belong in health services and special programs and removed from student behavior. All right, that transitions us into the second part of our document, which is that student handbook section. So here we start off with enrollment and attendance. So here we just kind of further define compulsory attendance as defined by the state. We also added guided language for making up missed coursework when we have students who fall into that absent category for a valid cause. And then we also made sure that we wanted to highlight the incredible work that our buildings are doing in terms of those attendance interventions. The next section, there was minimal language changes in terms of the bullying, harassment, racism, discriminatory language, and hateful acts. There was a lot of time and intentionality in focusing on that section last year, so we felt that that was in a really good space for this year. Our next section, student conduct. Here we added a number of items in terms of personal belongings, just really emphasizing what our students are bringing into our classrooms and our spaces. Student parking privileges and regulations at the high school level. Cell phone and mobile electronic device procedures at the high school level. And again, just wanted to highlight that we already had language in there for our elementary and junior high schools. And we had a lot of conversation and input from our high school teams and from our students about what that language looked like in order to incorporate that along with our other levels. We did include language around our threat assessment process, and then we further defined restraint timeout language as required by code. Minimal language changes in the next section, which then brings us to section 10, which is the Title IX section. Here we just wanted to highlight the change of title from Title IX to Title IX sexual abuse and grooming behaviors, because that section really encompasses a lot of information aside from just Title IX. We also wanted to highlight the work that our buildings do around Aaron's Law, which is our curriculum that is embedded in our spaces in terms of grooming and safe touches. The next section, we really just worked closely with transportation to further define what those expectations look for our students that are utilizing our transportation services. Moving right along, section 11. This is our suspension and expulsion guidelines. Here we really wanted to focus on adding language around the re-engagement and the returning of students. So what does that look like, and how do we support our students when they return after a period away from our schools? And then last but not least, the Code of Conduct, Athletics, and Extracurricular Activities. Worked very collaboratively with both of our high school athletic directors, reflecting in minimal language changes for that section. So I know that was quick, and that was a high-level overview. So I guess at this point, oh, one more slide, sorry. So our continued focus. Again, we just want to make sure, I kind of highlighted at the beginning, this is like, we're committed to the cause of really just continuing to enhance the usability of this, making sure that this document, while yes, heavy in policy, is really rooted in our student focus, and then just making sure that we continue to be dynamic, responsive, and adapt to those changes as they come our way, and what does that look like, and how do we best incorporate those to meet our students and our families where they're at. Now we'll open it for questions.
I have
Dominic.
I have some if okay. Page 24. Just want to clarify TBE, meaning kind of what the state refers to as TBE, not TBE programming. It's yeah.
For multilingual?
Number 3. Yeah.
Yeah, so
TBE is kind of dual language, TBE, there's different things. You're just using kind of the grant, wording or whatever.
Yeah, so TBE versus TPI,
Yeah.
and this is where Dr. Dubio comes in, because this is her expertise,
Okay.
being able to describe the difference between the two of those and which ones are in English and which ones are in Spanish and how that kind of rolls out from a service delivery. But we wanted that language in here, and that is represented with the transitional bilingual educational programming.
Of which we utilize dual language. Okay. I just wanted to, because there's also, how that, there's a lot of different acronyms or whatever. Page 41. I'm sorry, I got to get there too. I know, sorry.
Any other
so
questions? Go ahead.
So junior high, students are not permitted to carry backpacks of any kind. Same with elementary, but in high school, yes. So I'm just a little concerned about that transition, and if they're going to have enough time to be able to go to their lockers, and
yeah,
they're not going to be able to carry all those books. So has it been kind of tested?
I don't know that I can answer the tested question, but I can say that prior to COVID, this was not a practice, and that students were not carrying backpacks at the junior high level.
Did they do something where they shortened that time so
Yeah,
that's kind of
and then so going into COVID, right? Then we kind of went to utilizing those personal belongings, whether they're backpacks or some other items, right, and what they can carry. And there was a shortening of some of those passing periods as a result of some of that. Mr. Francis has worked extensively with those buildings and the staff to kind of understand how to use that space and that time. We've talked about how this is going to increase the need for executive functioning skills and some of those soft skills that kids need to use and needs to be taught and need to be reiterated with how do I organize things? How do I get from one place to another? What does that look like? And so we've talked about kind of rolling this out, what the communication needs to be, how we're going to support those kids, how we're going to support the staff, and being able to get this across. But we felt that this, in many of our conversations, and supporting staff's asks, supporting buildings asks, that the number of bags and things like that in classrooms are a significant hindrance to that space. And so that doesn't mean that we're going to eliminate all personal carry items, but those giant backpacks that tend to make their way into the classroom and into aisles and into all the kinds of spaces are going to need to be attended to.
And if I might step in for a moment, Mr. Francis will be at the Equity, Learning, and Innovation Board Committee meeting, presenting the interconnectedness of a bell schedule change with backpacks and a revision to the student support time in conjunction with what Mr. Bell was just speaking of. So more information to come.
Which will then come to the board. So preview, yes. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Also, answering your question about the backpacks, I was in middle school not so long ago, and it is kind of easy just putting your backpack in your locker, quickly grabbing your stuff, and just bringing it to your class, because middle school is relatively smaller than a high school, so you're not walking from like point A to point B, and it's a super long walk. Your classes are relatively really close to each other, and I feel like it's a good way to teach time management to the middle schoolers. So like, if you grab your books, you can't just be like walking around talking with your friends. Like, no, you gotta get to class. You gotta keep your priorities straight and learn when you're in school.
Oh.
And
Hired.
I'm just going to give you the mic.
I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the.
To add on to
that
Callie's.
we're doing that support part. That's yeah.
To add on to.
And go ahead.
And I think that speaks to the collaborative nature, is that we didn't make these decisions in isolation. We really. Again, listen to the buildings and other departments to be able to kind of make sure we're doing this with intentionality.
I'm also speaking for students and parents right now.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So.
And also to add on to Callie's point, counselors do a really good job for middle schoolers to have their classes relatively in the same hallway between like first and third hour. Your classes are not spread apart, like very like far apart. Like sometimes you'll have your class on the first floor and the second floor, first period and second period for high schools, but for middle schools, sometimes you'll have all your classes in the same row. I know my brother, same pod, and like it's after lunch now you have it on like the first pod. So it's not like they do it like a challenging way, like you're gonna go from the first floor all the way on the left to the second floor all the way to the right. Like they have it relatively in the same, for my experience and for my siblings' experience, they have it in the relatively same area for a majority of your class periods, depending on your grade level.
And definitely in high school, those deans let you know when the bell's about to ring. Like, they are on us. So I feel like it'll be easy for the middle schoolers to change.
And we have kind of a pretty big change on page 44. So we touched on this, but this is a pretty big change. So I'd kind of like to discuss that a little bit. I don't necessarily have a question, but high school and cell phones.
I think change is a relative term. I think that our teachers in our classrooms at the high school level have been doing any number of things to try and remove the distractibility of our electronic devices. Some of their teachers have pods in the front of the room, or I'm not using the right word, but pouches.
Like shoe organizers.
Shoe organizers, some of those other things. I don't know if you heard Governor Pritzker announce kind of recently about his potential proposition for what that would look like as a statewide statute. What we did was we looked at a number of different states that had already adopted this, and our language closely aligns to what potentially would come out of a statewide ban on cell phones. It still leaves a lot of autonomy for the teacher to be able to use those, just screen time. I don't want to limit it to cell phones, but let's say screen time, bless you, for instructional purposes. What we want to get away from is the need and the reliance on our screens and the distractibility that it causes for everyone in the space. whether that's the teacher, the student, the support person. When we met with SSAC and the coalition, we actually did, hey, pick up your phone, go to your settings, look how many times you had pickups, on a daily basis. And it ranged from 74 to, I think, 270 some, just in terms of pickups and what that does to your kind of mind frame, right? We've heard from parents, we've heard from staff, we've heard from legislators. But we also listened to the kids, and that they said that this is a useful tool to them. The times in which they're in the hallways or the times in which they're at lunch, some of them using it to check email for college applications, and to be able to kind of stay connected outside of the school for the things that they're doing in life. And so we have to figure out a way to provide that balance. And so I wouldn't say that this is change in language. I would say we've added clarity to what is an expectation already that exists within our spaces. And I think you'll see that come out on the state level as well as the national level as it already has.
Thank you. Dr. Murillo, did you have a question or comment?
No, Dominic actually kind of brought to the forefront one of my questions about characterizing what the change is at the high school. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you and your team for I'm sorry.
So regarding that cell phones, I mean, I personally love it, but two things that I want to say. I had a group of junior high students at my house last weekend, and they were like, well, what about the teachers that are always on the phone too? So like my son's math teacher talks to her daughter in college throughout the entire math period. So I think that needs to be, I think we need to model that as well. My other question is, and something that I shared with, a parent shared with Dr. Kilgotti and myself, and I don't know what other board members, but we are, a lot of, especially elementary teachers, are rewarding students with screen time, and that almost sends the opposite message. So there needs to be something done within administration to really talk about the effect of that and what that does. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you for adding AI and ChatGPT in there. If we could go to page 30, number 6, excused absences. Is the needs at home, is that a Illinois code thing? And the reason I say that is I know a handful of kiddos that have to stay home when their younger siblings are sick. And I mean, it just breaks my heart that they're being, I mean, let's be honest, it's here or there. I'm sure it's not devastating, but that does happen, and there are families that are in that situation. Is that our decision, or is that an Illinois school code thing?
Can you just clarify which number you're looking at?
It's page 30, number 6.
Number.
Unexcused absences.
Oh, unexcused.
And it talks about needs at home. Like, I know my neighbor was just home with his little brother who was sick the other day. And
Yep, absolutely. So we utilize those as some examples because within the excused absence, that's what's specifically taken from ISB in terms of what qualifies as valid code. However, we just want to reiterate that those are absolutely case-by-case basis, and like conversations that we often get in student services of, hey, I have this really unique circumstance. Can you guys kind of help me problem solve what this looks like? So if there's a situation like that, we are available. We have a director for elementary and secondary, and we can help kind of problem solve some of those situations.
Okay, excellent. And then on page 55, talking about controversial topics. This is just a draft, obviously, but will you make that form that parents can opt out live?
Yes. So Dr. Paul and her wonderful team are currently working on updating that form to make sure that it's ready to go. But that was also something that we made sure that we did in terms of going in, linking all of those pieces, and then eventually taking all of those forms and having an appendix where all of those extra resources in terms of forms that may be submitted can be quickly found. So yes, we will absolutely get that to you guys.
Excellent, thank you. As Mr. Bell will tell you, that came up in our former committee that parents didn't know where to find that. So if it's there, then they should have no problems. Thank you for, this is a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Hopefully she had something to say.
I just had a question on page 55 about teaching about controversial issues. Can you talk briefly about what you mean by a balanced view?
I'm going to kick that one to Dr. Paul in terms of it says teaching about controversial issues, and specifically the language says, where are you?
Be informative and present a balanced view.
Go ahead, Dr. Paul.
So it is exactly what it says, having a balanced perspective. So we have a novel text review process as well as a textbook review process that are novels that were proposed for information and today for action to the board went through, and this is the consideration that was used when looking at the novels that are coming forward for kids to read.
This is more of a comment, but on page 7, I really like how when you put additions, how you're advocating for more spaces that aren't talked about, and you're creating a space that's very comfortable for other students, because we don't talk about how like some students might be homeless or some are pregnant or multilingual. And I really like how you're creating more of a comfortable space for things to talk about, because I feel like mostly in education, students find it difficult to come to teachers when that's happening, and you adding on to your policy, I really like it. That's all.
Thank you.
Great job.
I have a shameless plug. All of you have in front of you kindergarten registration. If you're going to turn one, you do hand those out to your people accordingly. But if you're gonna turn 5 by 9/1, please register early, register often. We have KinderQuest coming. 311. No, you can't have the microphone. KinderQuest coming 311. So please.
Meyer putting these on windshield wipers. Don't call it.
I thought it was a commentary on my maturity.
All right, we have quite a few special guests this evening. You all want to come on up? Really important gathering.
You guys going to stay back there?
You're going to stay there, or are we? Dr. Kincaid, I want to turn it over to you.
All right.
For our presentation.
Wonderful. So we are so excited. Our team is here to share truly share our next chapter. So tonight you'll hear about our journey, the connection of our past, our present, and our future, including really the alignment between interweaving our district vision, our school plans, and then also our portrait attributes. So we have teams from both our Portrait of a Learner team and our district leadership team, not only presenting, but also here in the audience. We will talk tonight about what do our priorities look like, including how is the voice of our students, our staff, and our community really coming through our plan. So with that, I'm very excited to turn this over to our Executive Director of Communications, Teresa Kamaitis.
Hello.
Hello.
So yes, we are super excited. So we are going to kick this off in just 1 second, but I want to give you a quick preamble to this video. We are ecstatic to share this with you tonight. This work is really a culmination of many weeks of being out in literally like hundreds of classrooms and practices and events and things all across our district. You'll see it's our kids, it's what's every day happening in our classrooms. We often forget when we're sitting around at meetings all the amazing things that are happening behind the door and really why we're all here. And so we hope as you watch this video, it will set the tone for what the strategic planning journey has been like and what it's going to be like. It's very different. We got excited about it when we presented to you about our engagement, but this is really unique in that it truly is a story, a reflection of where we've been, where we're at to now, and where we all want to aspire to be in the future together. And that's really what sets this process apart is how we got to where we are at this point and how we're going to work together moving forward. So I do want to give a quick shout out to my team because a few of them are here. This was a ton of work to put this video together. Lots of time following cameras around in lots of schools. So without any further ado, we present our story video to you.
Can we hit one of the lights just to make it a little? Oh, thank you. Don't hit all of them, just.
Yes, this is
There we
first
go.
premiere.
We should just keep. Oh, rewind. Bump it up.
Oh, I love that note, that low light.
Turn up the bass.
Can we keep it like that?
We were the first class to graduate from Oswego High School in 1964 with more than 100 kids. Primary kids went to the Little White School. We were starting to get the growth. By then, Boulder Hill had just started. There was no Boulder Hill or Long Beach schools. So all those kids were bused here to Oswego during a period of time when all that explosive growth. Kendall County was the fastest growing county in the whole country. Similarities with the district probably are the quality of education kids get. We got a pretty good grounding. Here we were at one time a small country school district, and now we had people from all over the world speaking 52 different languages at home. The biggest, I think, positive of all this growth has been the expansion of the curriculum and the expansion of the opportunities for kids. We wound up having a huge percentage of our staff having advanced degrees. We have better educated teachers, give kids better opportunity.
We find unity and solidarity through those around us. Now, more than ever, our differences that put us apart also define us and bring us together. A single entity, we are one, constructed out of many. Like a piece of artwork, like a painting, our class is a single image, though it's composed of all shades, all brushstrokes, and all markings. But together, we create more, we achieve more. These impressions form a masterpiece that cannot be replicated. Even when the brushes have been cleaned and the canvas is left to dry, what has been created is something that will be a permanent part of the past. As we walk out of this auditorium with our painting completed, we walk out with another blank one in our hands. One meant to portray the actions we will take in the next chapter of our lives.
I'm going to remember that I am capable of overcoming failure, that I have potential for greatness, that I am incredibly lucky to have gotten these chances to grow, surrounded by people who love and support me. I'm ready to try, and to fail, and to rebuild, and to finally succeed.
But we have our own story. Now keep telling it, but go figure out the next chapter of this life.
This is my story. This is our story.
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 This is my story, and this is our story.
Yay! So now you have all the feels, right? We've set a good tone. So I do want you to know that we are working currently on having it a voiceover created fully in Spanish, and then we will also have our closed captioning available that can be translated in other languages, so it'll be accessible to everyone. So without anything else, I'd like to pass it on to our Portrait of a Learner team.
Those are the babies. We're going to get one more chair, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, President Simulton, members of the board, Superintendent Kelgati, and members of the school community. It is an absolute honor to officially introduce Portrait of a Learner. The Portrait of a Learner demonstrates our district's vision for our students' success, shaping the skills and experiences that guide them. It's a part of our story, ensuring each and every student is ready for their next chapter with a strong foundation. I have had the pleasure this year of leading the Portrait of a Learner Task Force, which includes the collaborative efforts of various classroom teachers, counselors, coordinators, reading specialists, building administration, and district administration from every department. Tonight, I have two members of our task force with me, Pete Meismer and Sarah Fisher. They're going to walk you through our journey and our process.
Thank you. So our Portrait of a Learner journey began during the 2023-2024 school year. Superintendent's Advisory Group and School Board Forum participants were asked the following questions. How important is it for high school graduates to be prepared to enter a university, community college, post-secondary technical training, such as an apprenticeship, military, or a living wage job? How important is it for high school graduates to be prepared for their roles as responsible, informed, and courteous global citizens, to explore and understand different perspectives, and to participate in society? How has the world changed since you were a student, and how has the changing world impacted students today? And what skills and mindsets will be necessary in a rapidly changing and complex world? The responses to these questions were compiled into a comprehensive summary through a partnership with Innovate K-12. Our task force work focused on additional analyzing and synthesizing of the data gathered in response to these questions. With a strong commitment to continuous feedback and increased engagement from a variety of stakeholders, we were able to identify and define 5 key attributes that represent the skills and abilities critical to the development of a learner in School District 308.
So, as we prepare students for their future, here are the 5 essential attributes that we have identified to equip students for their success. As engaged communicators and collaborators, students will confidently express ideas, actively listen, and work effectively with others to problem solve. As innovative thinkers and problem solvers, learners will be able to tackle challenges with curiosity, persistence, and creativity. By being responsible digital citizens, they will be able to understand and practice ethical, safe, and responsible use of technology. By being emotionally aware and responsive, students will develop empathy, resilience, and emotional intelligence to navigate diverse situations. And as adaptive, lifelong learners, students will embrace a growth mindset, adapt to change, and pursue continuous self-improvement. So through the work of our task force as a portrait of a learner, we wanted to ensure that this framework supports every student and being equipped with the skills and mindset to thrive in an ever-changing world.
Thank you. So at first glance, I think it's important to point out that some people might look at this as a simple graphic, right? But as the evening unfolds, you will see more of the connection to our pillars, our priorities, our 3 foundational practices, as well as the data that guides our decisions to support each and every learner. The Portrait of a Learner framework provides a comprehensive vision for future-ready scholars, and that is our true north. At its core, this framework reflects our commitment to holistic student development, ensuring each and every scholar is equipped with the skills, knowledge, and support needed to navigate an ever-changing world. Next, you'll hear from Principal Smith, who will share more about what falls under the umbrella of Portrait of a Learner.
All right. Good evening. Oh, it's working.
Good evening.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good evening. Making sure it's working here. Good evening, Board of Education members, district administration, and community members. I'd like to share a little information here regarding our Portrait of a Learner framework. The Portrait of a Learner framework is a comprehensive visual representation of the key components necessary for student development. It highlights the essential elements that contribute to a well-rounded, future-ready learner, emphasizing the interconnectedness of academic achievement, personal growth, and systemic support. Within our elements of framework, at the heart of the framework are foundational practices, which act as the backbone for both academic and personal success. These practices ensure that students develop strong skills, habits, and mindsets that prepare them for lifelong learning and adaptability. Surrounding this foundation are 4 critical pillars that support a holistic educational experience. For one, at the top there is Future Ready. This pillar focuses on equipping students with the skills, the knowledge, and the mindset necessary to navigate a rapidly evolving world It includes competencies such as critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, and technological literacy to ensure students can excel in both careers and personal lives. Next, systems of support. Recognizing that student success is not solely dependent on academic instruction, this pillar emphasizes the importance of resources, guidance, and interventions. Support structures may include mentoring programs, counseling services, tutoring, or community partnerships to address the diverse needs of our students. Academics and wellness. This underscores the balance between rigorous academic achievement and the overall well-being of students. It acknowledges that cognitive, social, emotional, and physical health are interconnected and must be nurtured alongside the traditional learning. Schools that prioritize wellness create environments where students feel safe, supported, and are motivated to learn. Systems management. In order to maintain an effective and sustainable educational experience, structured processes must be in place. This pillar focuses on leadership, governance, policies, and operational efficiencies that ensure schools can provide high-quality education while fostering innovation and responsiveness to student needs. At the base of our framework here, you'll see core values, which serve as guiding principles that reinforce each of these elements. These values, humanization, collaboration, dignity, courtesy, integrity, and empathy, ensure that student development remains aligned with ethical and educational priorities. They help shape the culture of learning environments, influencing both curriculum design and daily interactions within the school communities. Next, you will hear from Principal Bankowski, who's going to discuss district pillars and priorities.
Good evening. So I'm Laura Bankowski. I'm the principal of Oswego East High School. The teacher in me is kicking in, and I want to tell everybody to stand up and stretch and stuff, because otherwise I feel like I'm going to be Charlie Brown's teacher with wah-wah. So so I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm excited to talk about the 4 pillars of work and just kind of the journey that has been. And really, when you look at that and you think about that within our school district strategic plan, all 5 of these priorities that Sean just talked about are included in these 4 pillars of work. And they really serve to connect the objectives to, the necessary time that we're going to need, the resources that are needed, and everything that's been talked about tonight, right? Raphael, talking about the finance piece, others talking about students' rights and responsibilities, talking about just all of the nuances that we have. So this serves as those foundational pieces. The pillars really are a focus on our commitment to enhancing educational opportunities for our students and those outcomes and supporting them through that process. So the first pillar is academics and student services, student success. And it really emphasizes those high academic standards that we have, facilitating student achievement through engaging teaching practices. Our desire is for students to have those experiences, the skills and knowledge to be successful in whatever future endeavor they choose to pursue. And so we want them to be set up for success when they leave Oswego East High School, when they leave Oswego High School. We want them to be successful. And that takes everything that they experience in their entire time. The second pillar is educational access and supportive environment. And we need to ensure that every single student who comes through our doors has equitable access to educational resources, to a nurturing, trusting environment. And we are, and I'm gonna say for people who dedicate their lives to this profession, we are passionate in believing that we have to support students emotionally, physically, nurturing, and that is at the core of who we are and what we do every single day in supporting students. You know, and if you look at that pillar 1 and that pillar 2, those are the things that we do on a daily basis. But then if you look at pillars 3 and 4, this is how we want to accomplish and be successful in those first 2 pillars. So that third pillar in partnership and collaboration, that is talking about building those strong relationships with families, with community, with organizations, with businesses, with stakeholders. That connection, building those relationships, that is vital for our school district's success. We are not just this single entity that can just stay in this tiny little box, right? We have to build those relationships, and we have to go out and seek them for our students' sake. We need to create those opportunities for our families to be involved, that they're welcomed into school spaces. And that's going to help build those relationships to support students. Looking for that collaboration with local community, business partnerships to create those opportunities, whether it's the student who wants to be an exotic animal vet, we have one of those at Oswego East right now, or we have individuals who are seeking opportunities in trades, in engineering, whatever it might be, that we are finding those connections within the business community, within the greater Oswego community, that students can have those experiences. And then, you know, as Raphael was talking earlier, that resource allocation and talking about how we are going to find that efficient, common sense use of our physical, our financial, and our human resources so that we can maximize our impact on students and their learning. And that is our goal, is we want to be very strategic in how we use that and how we use our resources so that we can support students academically, instructionally, and emotionally. So, you know, in conclusion, these 4 pillars are vital to our strategic plan, and they are going to guide our efforts in creating that educational environment where students can thrive. And I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Kincaid.
So as we discussed at our last meeting, we really took a deep dive into the data to shape our pillars. Across each of the 5 priorities, you will see objectives in each of these 4 pillars. So looking at our strategic roadmap, analyzing the curriculum audit, looking at both academic data and our social emotional data that we see not only through our school data, but also 5 essentials. That's where we landed on the 4 pillars. From there, then we transition to what is our community, which is encompassing our students, our staff, our families. What are the priorities? And that is what we are about to unveil in terms of our objectives across all 5 of our priorities. So what I would like to do next is invite both our OEA co-president Faye Scobie and our OESPA co-president Lynn Waite, who are going to do a deeper dive into some of what informed the plan and highlight the connection for us. So with that, thank you for being here, Faye.
Good evening. Lynn just asked me if I was going to sing a song, which I am not. Just so you all know.
Recorders? Can we have a recorder?
I can bring out my recorder if you would like. I am, as Heather said, I'm Faye Scobie. I teach elementary music at Churchill, and I'm also the co-president of OEA. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how, when we were building the strategic plan, we really wanted the plan to reflect the voice of the community. We really wanted all stakeholders in Oswego to be a part of building and creating the plan, not just being given it at the end. So the district has worked very hard about engaging voices from as many different places, from as many different people, to really get the voice of our community, to really hear what they're saying. I'm happy and excited to say that we've had over 4,000 points of engagement. We've had a lot of people from staff, students, families, community members, they've all participated in a variety of different methods. They've participated in surveys, polls, there have been town halls and focus groups. They've got to meet both virtually and in person, and just take the opportunity to share their expertise, their thoughts, their experiences here in Oswego, and we're really excited that the plan is being created by everyone, not just the school employees. And to kind of explain how everything's connected is Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Wade. I am the administrative specialist for special ed at Oswego High School, and like I was introduced, OESPA president. So our next thing is how we wrapped it all up. This is our strategic vision for the next 3 years, hopefully. And as you've heard from everyone previously, this is our strategic vision. It encompasses all of our points, our portraits of a learner, their attributes, our 4 pillars of work, where are we at? Leading to our priorities, and then finally with our annual objectives. So everything is going to be where we can physically see and follow the plan and not just hearsay or, well, we think this might work. We have definitely visions of, and our priorities will be definitely written down with our objectives that we will be reviewing on an annual basis. So it will also become fluid as well as things change. We all know nothing stays the same. We can't predict everything. So that's the beauty of it with all of our stakeholders and where we're at. We have that ability to be fluid with the plan as well. And then these were all driven by the foundational practices that we have, and I'm excited. This connects the strategic plan from the vision that we started with a while back to the actual work across the district and our schools, so it's very exciting. Yes, it is. And next,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh,
no.
Oh, no.
Okay, so we are going to start getting into the meat of it. Before we jump right in, we want to remind you that there's 5 priorities and 4 pillars. Each priority considers all 4 pillars that you have here. These were kind of discussed in detail already. What we want to show with this slide, though, is that there isn't a finish line for us. This is an ideal state, this circle and what you see up here as far as having, physical and psychological safe environments and trusted relationships and equitable distribution of our resources. These types of things we know aren't going to be done come 2028. This is a journey. This is the next chapter of our story. We aren't going to be writing the end at the end. But this is really ongoing for us. So we just wanted to remind you that each of these 4 pillars are present in each of the priorities for each of the 3 years. So it is very programmatic in the way that it all kind of flows out. And so we are going to kick it off with priority 1, Future Ready, with Mr. Francis.
Thanks, Teresa. So when you look at the 3-year plan for being future ready, this is really grounded in that PACE framework that Dr. Paul, Ben Owen, and I spoke about at the last meeting, right? The PACE framework, just again, to refresh for everybody, is just post-secondary career expectations. So this really blends, right? How are we getting kids ready for post-secondary schooling and just post-secondary careers, right? Post-secondary career expectations really are grounded in 3 things. It's career exploration and development. So again, finding yourself as a future worker and employer. How are you using and leveraging what we're doing as a school district to help you prepare for life after Oswego East and Oswego High School and Pathways and Goal and all of our places, EVA, all of our places. So it's career college exploration development. It's post-secondary education exploration, right? Preparations, applying all of that work that is led through our high schools of getting kids ready for college. And then also, like, I think a really undervalued but really important financial aid and financial literacy. How are we helping our students being financially aware of how life operates, how they can use money for their benefit, and stay ahead of the game that way. So again, it's grounded in that PACE framework. Everything that we're kind of talking about in Future Ready starts with there. As you look right on the educational access environment, again, this is what Ben Owen really talked about last week, that School Links as that platform to better help prepare our staff, our counselors, to work with our students. Jared Ploger already is a little familiar with School Links. We know that game. And we're excited to roll that out with our district when it comes time, right? And then as this goes, like the layers that we're doing with this is really developing that digital literacy for our students. How are they understanding their footprint on electronics? How are they understanding, just their life within social media? All of those skills that they need, also relating that eventually to AI literacy, right? Again, all about this future focus for our students. Throughout all of this, if I can go to the next slide, right? This is really the how. This is all really rooted in like a cycle of inquiry, right? Right now we're in the planning phase. We're gonna start implementing as these 3 years go, right? Over and above, what we're doing is we're gonna roll this out. We're gonna assess how it's going, and then we're gonna reflect, do the next cycle of inquiry, right? How are we continually changing and making this better for our students, better for our staff? Throughout all of this, right, here are the partnerships that we're going to do. There is a lot that will come with this, right? It's more pathways for college credits, for all of our endorsements that we are doing within that PACE framework. But again, we can't do that without getting some partnerships from our community. How do we get businesses to help our educators and our students learn this work? How do we identify where we are getting time for professional development? And again, bringing in experts to help our staff and really lean on that expertise that is within our community. So all of this is really that 3-year plan as far as our priority of being future ready. And we are going to turn it over to Jadon and Yvette.
Thank you very much. So I actually am going to be focusing on the what we do area for our priority systems of support, and then Dr. Dubiel will explain to you all how we intend to accomplish it. And so our goal is to create an environment where students thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. We are strengthening our academic student success and access to supportive environments through the following actions. So within academics and student success, we are integrating rightful presence and behavioral expectations within a scope and sequence of the social-emotional learning curriculum from EC, early childhood, through 8th grade, ensuring students are able to understand what they need within their environment to be successful alongside academics. We are establishing clear instructional and SEL behavior standards for Tier 1 to ensure that all students are receiving equitable, differentiated support. At the same time, we are aligning Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions across schools to provide consistent academic and behavioral support, ensuring no student is overlooked. In the following years, we will continue the integration and evaluation of those systems to ensure its effectiveness and its impact. Within our next area, educational access and supportive environment, we are implementing a new data dashboard to analyze student needs, guide decisions, and improve school performance by identifying the most effective interventions and enrichments for our students. To enhance student support structures, we are reorganizing student support teams, particularly in our junior high schools, to be more responsive and student-centered. And through professional learning and leadership collaboration, we are refining our foundational practices that ensure that every student receives the resources that they need in order to succeed. And furthermore, we are developing frameworks that explicitly include special education and multilingual learners, reinforcing our commitment to equity and excellence. Thank you.
Can I just underscore something right there, Dr. Well, I think one of the most important things that you may be, as your listening board, is important that what we've created is really based on where we are today. Not what we hoped we were, but really based on what we are, where we are today in terms of the types of things we need to put in because they weren't there, right? So, for example, a data dashboard. Those kinds of things that you may think, well, so a lot of these things are really homegrown structures. And so when you're listening, I want you to really tune to that. I think it's really important that many of these things are because we're really starting, and when you listen to the feedback from the curriculum audit, it really underscores that. So I apologize for interrupting the flow, but I just want to underscore that. Go ahead, Dr. Dubiel, sorry.
Okay.
we're going to talk now about how we accomplish these systems of support. So we recognize we need a comprehensive professional learning plan that is aligned with our goals and our needs. We recognize that we need to embrace the highly regarded and evidence-based school leader paradigm, which is a leadership model focused on culture, learning, and systems of collaborative leadership and continuous improvement. We recognize we also need to increase our special education collaboration to ensure that students are present in special education through the collaboration with their general education peers. We're working to monitor our staff resource allocations to ensure equitable staff plans for schools and departments, ensuring alignment with student needs and refining based on data and best practices. We're looking at our financial resources and continue to do so to identify the necessary financial resources for new interventions and programs. And overall, as Dr. Calgary said, is providing that time and that training on the dashboards and the implementation of tier academic and professional behavior interventions. Dr. Paul?
So our next priority area is academics, and I'm going to be speaking to what we plan on doing. The first area is curriculum development. We will be conducting a comprehensive review of curriculum needs from early childhood through high school, ensuring equitable access to Spanish language arts, math, science, and English language arts. In addition, we'll be working on refining our student-centered structures with efforts including restructuring our junior high electives to better meet student needs and align to programming at the high school, improve assessments to refine equitable instructional strategies and instructional resources. In addition, we'll work on educational access and equity. We'll do a phased review of multilingual, special education, and gifted education programs in order to enhance equitable programming and student learning outcomes. How we'll accomplish it in academics is we will strengthen our partners and collaboration across grade levels and content areas through structured articulation schedules to ensure alignment in curriculum and assessments. In addition, with resource allocation, we will focus on identifying and allocating professional learning, time, and financial resources to support culturally responsive curriculum and instructional technology. And then with technology and assessment, we will conduct a needs assessment that will guide our development of an instructional technology plan with measurable goals and stakeholder input. Up next is Assistant Superintendent Jeremy Bell.
Over the next 3 years, we have focused this pillar with these objectives in the area of wellness. What we do is going to be focused and centered around relational responsiveness in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction. We're going to communicate at practice and have common language as it relates to systemic responses for emergency and preparedness training. This also encompasses district reunification planning. In terms of educational access and supportive environment, we're going to lift those shared definitions of relational responsiveness in that Tier 1, Tier 2, and instructional framework. We're going to evaluate the use of that common language, and we're going to continue training and evaluate those district-wide processes in the event of a need for a campus-wide evacuation. How we will accomplish all this? We will accomplish this through labor management partnerships and continuing that expansion. That work has begun this year through this entire process, as well as with our district leadership team. We're going to continue to address disparities within our school improvement planning and examine plans for the physical, mental health, and financial well-being of all of our staff and respective supports. And last but not least, we're going to continue allocation and time and resources around safety and security based on our security audit findings and provide essential training in all of these areas.
So I'm going to speak to the systems management priority. I think one of the key areas that I'm going to speak to, we mentioned earlier before when we were talking about the finances, which is the need to restructure transportation. That is an important thing that we need to do as a district. And so we're going to look at the transportation as we currently have it, look for ways to restructure it and make it more efficient so that it can be sustainable long term. Another part of that will be to to continue the master facility plan that we've engaged on. And that will be the first year. Second year will be continuing to monitor transportation for efficiency. And then we know, for example, as a district, we spend significant money on technology. We need to come out with a technology plan to actually create a process of designing a plan as to how we use technology, how technology supports the work that we do as a district. And once we've done the technology plan assessment, then we can start coming up with how we can implement that. So the next phase will be in the systems management, will be the implementation of the assessment of transportation. How do we determine ridership? Who is eligible to ride on the bus? Who should we provide transportation? And we continue to monitor that to make sure that we can continue to afford transportation long term. And we know related to this, as it relates to resource allocation, is do we have the resources, the money necessary for us to continue to do what we need to do as a district? And part of what we do is to be smart with the way we budget. And what we started doing last year, and we continue to do now and moving forward, is to adopt zero-based budgeting, whereby we don't roll the programs over every year. We look at it from the beginning, and we look at what do we need this particular year in order to develop a budget. And in doing that, too, we come up with a concept of ROI. Whatever it is that we implement, that we bring in this year, we have systems in place to see if we get a return on our investment.
As Mr. Obafemi mentioned, this systems management is really the foundation of our operational efficiencies and effectiveness. So this priority includes not only transportation, operations, technology, but also human resources in terms of more efficient recruitment and hiring practices. In addition, the bridge between our human resources and our finance department, we are also looking to implement increased efficiencies in staff attendance and payroll. So as we talk about all 5 of our priorities, our systems management really then connects all of our priorities together. So with that, Teresa will talk about next steps.
Yeah. So that's the end of the overview of our objectives. You have them all in full in front of you in a draft booklet that we're working on. What's next is really building the work plans. So we shared with you what the ideal state is at the end of each of those years and kind of what the to-do list looks like. But what needs to happen now behind the scenes is really developing those work plans that will get us to each of those objectives. So that's where kind of the rubber hits the road for all of us. Then we'll be helping to make this plan really digestible to our community. Our community was part of authoring this plan. Many of the objectives that you saw represented in the plan were ideas from our students, our staff, our families, our community. We really want to make sure that they understand that they're there and in what ways it impacts their experience with the district. So we will be helping to develop materials for everyone to see and understand how they fit. So we will come away from some of the big ideas and some of the difficult education language that we sometimes lose people in and really make it simple. We're going to use a webpage to kind of keep everybody updated. Unlike previously where it was just kind of a measurement, we're actually going to use stories and narrative going along with our theme of our story. So we'll be giving you proof points as we go along on this journey of different things that have happened by developing stories and sharing photos and seeing how this plan is coming to life across the district. Also connected as part of our whole overall theme of keeping all of these things kind of tied together and aligned is our school improvement plan. So those were based on our foundational practices. Now, once the board takes action on this plan in March, next steps for the schools will be then to assemble their teams to help build next year's school improvement plans that again will align with what you just heard in the strategic plan. And then, as this was mentioned previously, this is not going to be published and done. So we are going to be establishing a very clear protocol for revisiting and refining along the way so that this does not become a plan that's unrelatable to our system. We really want this to be representative of current times. And if we need to adjust a little bit in order to be relevant to our stakeholders, then that's absolutely what we're going to do. So we'll be developing those protocols for everyone to continually evaluate and improve this plan so it's a single driver to all the work that we are doing. So with that, we're going to open it up, and Heather's going to help us kind of narrate through our questions. So thank you so much to the team for being here, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
I have a comment more so than a question. Just trying to recognize the slide 8 and 9. It's slide 8 and 9 for me, but just to recognize the incredible amount of time, effort, energy, intentionality, and engagement that went into creating this. And I just wanted to, and I know it's been said, and I know you guys understand it, but I just wanted to say thank you for being committed to the process that it took in order to produce a document that's really the starting point, as you just said. But I believe it really does go a long way. And I appreciate, and I've been saying this for 3 years, and I appreciate the thread. Slide 9, I mean, I can just, if I could hug slide, like that's the slide. It makes so much sense to me. It connects all of the dots, the intentionality behind it. And any of the questions that I would have had were answered in one slide. And so I just appreciate, and I'm sure I'll have questions as we implement it, because the practices, it's one thing to have a plan, it's another thing to implement the plan. And of course we have learnings and discoveries as we're attempting to implement, and it's so important. The practices are as important. Sometimes the outcomes that we get are not consistent with what we desired. But I just wanted to say thank you. I'm still digesting, and more to come.
Yes, Mr. Gatewood, I really appreciate you mentioning that, and that really connects to that first what's next bullet point. Is we have our district leadership team coming together tomorrow to start not only processing through the feedback for tonight, but diving into the work plans, which will connect the objectives to the metrics. So there will be not only deliverables, but then also reports to come to this team and to our board to see the progress each year and year over year.
That's
so
great.
that has been something that has been part of the fabric of all the discussions. And actually what the team kept wanting to jump to was, how are we going to measure? But we really had to take the time to build the structure to get to the how. And that's what we hope to bring back, at least some year one work plan drafts. So you'll see those metrics over the next couple of weeks. Why we have the timeline we did was because we're really intentional about the connection between the district and the schools. And the schools really wanted to start with their school improvement planning for 25-26 in April.
Yes.
So hence the timeline that we're on. So thank you so much for that feedback.
That's great. That's great.
Dr.
I mean, I'm going to echo Mr. Gatewood's comments. Kudos to the whole group. And then I'm just to dive into a couple questions. One question, and maybe the answer is I haven't seen it because there's a lot here, and I've read through it a couple of times. Or maybe the answer is it didn't come up as, didn't surface among when we gathered all our data, and that's okay. Is there anything in this plan that is it related to sports or activities for students?
So there is.
And if maybe you could point me to it.
Yes. So we have a couple of different spots in terms of that. First, especially connected to some additional opportunities for our special education learners.
Yeah.
In terms of,
No, not necessarily. I'm just wondering.
and then, so, and yes, I should have this memorized. Oh, please. Within our wellness, and then also within our transportation. So we are, as Mr. Obafemi talked about, trying to bring some efficiencies to our transportation over the next year or two. What also came from that was the desire to look at some additional after-school transportation. So that is part of the plan. So looking at what are some opportunities in connection with our students' needs, and then also transportation.
Okay. I'm asking because I feel like we hear often from the community about sports and activities, and I'm wondering, you know, I know we cut junior high sports at one point, and that was like, are we going to bring something back? And so I don't know. I don't want to put something in a plan just because I mentioned it at a board meeting, right? I want it to come from the community. So if this is not something that's surfaced from the community in regards to looking at our extracurricular activities and looking at our, you know, sports and after-school programs, I don't want to put it in there because I'm asking it. So my question, I guess a follow-up would be, did more than what's in here surface in our data around extracurricular activities and sports? I'm not asking you to answer that right now. I'm just asking, is that a thing? Yeah.
Teresa wants to add something, and then I want to add something.
Yeah, so actually one of our online polls was specifically about extracurriculars and the amount of them that we offer, and it was actually incredible feedback. Explicitly in our focus groups on multiple occasions, it was brought up that both the offering as well as the accessibility of the offering. So students with special needs being able to participate in extracurricular activities, language barriers, maybe a deaf of hard of hearing student may not be able to participate in an after-school activity because the sponsor may not, you know, be fluent in sign language. And so there was just this desire to really examine what we're already offering and how it's accessible to our full student body. And one piece of that was the transportation, because if students don't have a way to participate in after-school activities or sports because they don't have transportation home afterwards, that was another barrier. So it was really more about bringing the barriers down for students that don't participate today than it was about a need for more or new things.
And in 26, 27, if you look at page 17, it talks about continue to enhance school-based programs and activities that provide connection and rightful presence for all students. So this is to your point about the junior high and the elementary space specifically. And then when you look at 28, 27.
Dr. Holiati, my package was on page 14.
It's on the, it's in our board doc.
I'm so sorry.
The
board doc.
In the board docs.
It's in here. You have the slide presentation and the booklet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually good that we're going through this because the nomenclature will help you as you're looking through this. So there are years, part of the evaluation process we talked about. Sorry. You got it. All right.
Yes, sorry.
So part of what happened was the team evaluated what can we functionally and productively achieve in year one of this plan versus everything has to be achieved in year one of the plan. Because we understand very realistically, and this is where the DLT, the district leadership team, became very paramount, because together they said, okay, realistically, with the amount of time allotted for professional learning based on current conditions, the amount of time, the human resources of staff to enact these things, what can be actually productively achieved in year 1, 2, and 3? And so, to your point, many, many things emerged, and then in multiple passes, we had to say, okay, Can this be get done? What's urgent? What comes first? What comes second? If we haven't resolved programs during the school day, but yet we're over prioritizing after school, but we haven't even addressed internal curricular issues, challenges in the school day, how can we jump to to after school? Not that it's not important, which is, I think, a big distinction. It's absolutely important, but it had to have a place where it could be what we kept saying to the team was, let's not put on paper what we cannot achieve.
I completely agree.
And so to that, a lot of what we heard from educators like, is this going to be another fancy laundry list that's going to sit on a wall? They really wanted a plan that could be felt as a result of what we're doing over time versus a plan that has like all the things that are important to everybody, but then doesn't achieve much of anything.
Yeah.
Dr. Kincaid, do you want to add to that? I think so I'll say, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's definitely prioritization, and there were many passes through, listening to voices both in and out of the schools of what needed to foundationally be built and then built upon. So as you look through all 3 years, you'll either see planning, progression, and implementation, or strengthening. So taking on additional things year after year. So, but we did have to make sure that, as we have heard about earlier, we have some connection between not only professional learning, as Dr. Kalgati mentioned, but also budgetary considerations about what is accomplishable. So that's why we looked at a 3-year strategic plan, knowing that we will see some changes over the 3 years and really building for the future.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I do appreciate the way that the things are written and that it is very tangible. Like, it's not so overarching that you can say, yes, we accomplished this. I have another question, but I don't know. I'll go to my next question. This is a curriculum thing. It's very particular, but in the Future Ready priority in 26-27, there's an opportunity to articulate or to overview and articulate on articulated credit and dual credit. I'm wondering if AP advanced placement is particularly left out of that for a reason, and then I'm also wondering if that you're going to be doing some articulation of curriculum in your other academic priority area, and I think it would be important to also, I feel like that's late in the game in year 3, if you're doing some curriculum work in like math and language, like in science and things early in the strategic plan. Does that make sense?
Yes, so the math work, and Dr. Paul can also speak to this, is just starting the curriculum renewal cycle. So why we placed that in year 3 was really to then have some foundational knowledge and information about our ELA and math to then do comprehensively across all departments. Right now, our dual credit and articulated credit offerings are smattered, and it's not a consistent overarching plan. So we wanted to make sure that we entered the curriculum cycle that was determined priorities or building off the work that's currently being done, but then also looking at the dual credit, and yes, obviously connected to our AP offerings also. But really, what are those college and pre-college opportunities for our students? Dr. Paul, is there anything?
Add on, again, it's underneath the Future Ready area. Not that it would only stay there in isolation, right? We're paying attention to how everything's interconnected, but really wanting to create more clear pathways for students. And so when we talk about dual credit opportunities, how we can increase that connection to pathways in 912. So that's why it's here in Future Ready, but everything Dr. Kincaid said, I would echo.
There are specific things she's describing. Why were those delayed? And I think if we could speak to that a little bit. Why are they not earlier? Yeah. What I'm hearing is that ramp up may be too late. So, but what is the current state of things as to why that is a little later versus right now. Like there are some things that you have to hone in, like establishing a curriculum advisory council. That was something that we had to really build. So please speak to that if you could.
So we also are implementing for the first time a curriculum renewal cycle that Dr. Kincaid alluded to. So in the academic priority area, it kind of alludes to the different stages that the different curricular areas would be in. So we're paying attention to that when you go into that first part of the cycle, you're really doing a needs assessment, and that's where we can see what we're currently offering for dual credit and articulated credit in our K-12 system, and then be looking to see that as we move forward throughout the cycle, what recommendations will we be making for course selection to enhance our opportunities for students, but that again, we need to do some foundational work first, and then also make a connection to the career pathways that we want to offer for our students as we continue to build that throughout our system.
If any members of the DLT are here want to jump in for any answering, please also come on up, just so you know. Feel free.
I just had a thought about, the portrait of a learner, and maybe it's here and it's just not as explicit as I'm thinking about it, but you know, as a learner, I'm wondering if having a global perspective is important for a student so that they understand the interconnectedness of us all, you know, whether we live in this country or whether we live across the world, as well as just being interconnected, like we're not just islands among ourselves, but that we are all interconnected, even as part of, you know, this community. And so I'm just wondering, as you know, as the portrait of a learner, is that in there and I'm just missing it, or is it important enough, or?
Is it okay if I?
Yeah, yes, please.
That's a really good question, and my answer might answer some other questions that might be existing. Today was an effort to give a broad view of Portrait of a Learner. What is coming next that you haven't seen is the definitions that go under the 5 attributes. The piece that is making the process take a little bit longer is we want to get feedback from our scholars. So we've gotten feedback from the community, we've gotten feedback from our alumni, we've gotten feedback from district level staff and some other staff, but right now what we did was listen to our building level administrators when they said it's too much going on to do another survey right now. And what we want is for when our scholars interact with these questions and they're really thinking about what they need, so we have the perspective of what their parents feel like they need. We have the perspective of what district administrators feel like they need, building level administrators, like we have that perspective. But if we're creating a portrait of a learner, then the voice of the learner needs to be present as well. So that piece is what we are waiting on. So we have the information from the community and we take that and we synthesize it along with Ann Cummins Bogan. We send it to her and then she aligns all of the information that we have received since last year. And so when we create more questions, which comes out from Teresa, she sends questions to the teachers, and then we synthesize a little bit more. And then we begin to create questions in a way that students can understand, in a way that they can articulate, this is what I need, regardless if we're talking about what they need academically, socially, emotionally, psychologically, like all of the things. And so it's going to be more than just the high schools and the junior high. We're also speaking to elementary school students too. We won't go down past 4th grade, but we do want to have the conversation because we truly do value what they say they need. And sometimes that's missing from a lot of the work that we do. You have these roundtable conversations full of adults, and you are planning for students without the student voice. So that part is coming. That has come up from various stakeholders, but we still are holding out for that student voice without overwhelming them because there's so much happening in the buildings, and we don't want them to be exhausted from surveys and assessments and all the things because they're still babies and they get tired too. And we really, really value the data, so we want to gather that data and use it to really say this is the voice of all of our stakeholders and how do we use our true north and then develop what is next for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Paul, did you want to add something? Thank you.
On to that. From the learning innovation side, we eagerly wait to see the findings of the work that Toya has been leading with her team, because we want to use that information to integrate that into our curriculum maps and scope and sequences that we're creating for our different curricular areas, so that it becomes embedded within the classroom experience for students, so that it doesn't feel like a separate thing that we do. So we still have some work to be doing ahead of us, and we're excited about future collaboration around this area.
I was just gonna say, in another district, I don't want to say I was in the trenches, but certainly I had courtside seats to this, and it's kind of difficult to narrow this down. And when you're dealing with like a lot of people coming from a lot of different directions with some of those pieces, sometimes, yeah, I think it's good that you bring it up, because like I'm sure there's a lot of other attributes, if you will, that probably were mulled over or kind of made a list, if you will, that was like, well, wait a minute, what about this or that? And I think it's important that those pieces get in there. But it's a difficult process when you got to narrow it down to like 3, 4, or 5. It's tough, but I think it's good that you bring it up, because I agree with you.
And I think, though, what Toya said is that it can be, there are many more attributes under there that you just haven't presented to us yet, because I actually asked Dr. Waller that same question. I do have a question, though. What was the choice in going with Portrait of a Learner versus Portrait of a Graduate?
Just stay up there, Toya.
What's interesting is that we had that conversation. We've had so many conversations.
I bet.
I'll tell you, this work has really been invigorating, right? Because we're all passionate about students. The reason the team, well, part of it is I inherited Portrait of a Learner, Portrait of a Leader, Portrait of an Educator. But I think when you think about future ready, every student's path looks different, right? And that has to be taken into consideration, because even where they think they're going, that could change, because you don't know what the journey is going to be. So at the end of the day, we're thinking about lifelong learning, be it if we're talking about problem solving or collaborating or being empathetic or understanding diverse perspectives. This is the learning game, right? And so it's a life skill. It's not just about graduation, because post-graduation, you still need to be able to do these things. So something that came up from Character Strong certification was like the foundational things that are necessary, and some of the goals that are proximal and some goals that are distal, right? We won't know for a very long time if you truly are an engaged learner, if you're a collaborator, if you're a problem solver. But we have everything in place every step of the way to hopefully ensure that you can demonstrate that, right? Because we can talk about it all day long, but you really don't know until you're tested, right?
Yeah.
That's when you know. People think they can hold their temperament, but get in a situation where somebody frustrates you, and then you see how someone truly shows up, right? And so I think it's about the learning journey, not just the graduation.
I really love that answer. I was hoping to hear that. So I want to make a comment, and I don't want anybody to feel that it is negative in any way. So I appreciate all the work that has gone into this, that thousands of hours, hundreds of hours that have gone into this. But I have a very specific question about, is this strategic planning, or is this the actual strategic plan? Because this sounds more like it's planning versus it's a plan. Or do I need to elaborate?
No, I
Okay,
understand.
Okay.
So 2 things. One is, when you look at what was before, there were many, many things on that document. In fact, what we heard in why we ended up with the strategic roadmap was because there were multiple plans in action.
Yeah.
And depending on what school you visited, what community you were in, you heard different things. And so the first thing was to really rally, the first thing was the strategic roadmap, which was really to identify the major holes that we need to start to address on the path to a strategic road map, right? Then was to really engage, is there a collective vision? And really to bring together all the various educators, staff members, certified, non-certified, families, to say, okay, when you think about the landscape of how we're going to pace our resources and our time and our learning, what are we going to do first, second, third? How do parents say, when are you going to fix this? Okay, well, to fix that, we've got to fix these three things on the road to getting there, right?
And
so,
that's getting
and
to the
so
heart of
I
my
think it's really tough because there are significant academic areas that within our performance that we need to address. But if you haven't built a cohesive plan that addresses how we think about professional learning, that thinks about how we are providing the appropriate resources, that the district or even principals or teachers have access to relevant, rigorous performance data on a regular basis. We just this year just started testing giving our students formative assessments in Spanish vis-a-vis the STAR, is it STAR? Right, STAR program. That's the first year. So can you imagine if we're going to do this in year one, but we don't even have the appropriate benchmark? So I think it's both a plan and a pathway. Dr. Kincaid.
So the strategic planning is really the culmination of the connection between our portrait to our foundation with our pillars to the priority areas, and then the plan are those objectives then supplemented by the action plans, those work plans, the actual, like, here are the tasks with the measurable outcomes. So comprehensively, yes, this is our strategic planning to connect. The strategic plan is our objectives and our work plans that will accompany.
I know this seems very maybe minutia to some.
No, it's very helpful. Thank you.
Someone that has done this, in another school district, but also in my professional life, a strategic plan has very specific components. It always starts with your vision and mission, and I didn't see that. It always starts with establishing accountability, and Dr. Kelgatti and I talked about this a year ago, that this is great, but who's responsible for page 12? Who's responsible? There has to be, to be able to be accountable and responsibility, we need to see who is, you'll say, oh, well, that's Dr. Paul or that, but that's not in the plan. So that's something that's very important. And then the other thing, and our core values, those are kind of missing from here too. And then the other thing is the idea of a SWOT analysis. And I think it's really important, especially in the environment that we're in right now, that we really do show what those threats are. We know the strengths, we know the weaknesses, we know the opportunities, but what are the threats to seeing this happen? Funding, we know a lot of times when there's a change in or turnover in so forth. So I think that if we're really going to call this a strategic plan, we should make sure kind of those key components are in there, and we are very honest with ourselves about all this is what we want to do, but there are definitely challenges. And then finally, I'm hoping, two things. For someone who this is a lot of information for someone who is neurodivergent like myself, but will you guys, as you're kind of finalizing, do like, here's what 26-27 looks like, and just have a one-pager for 26-27, a one-pager for 27-28, whatever the numbers are, 25-26, and so forth, so we can just see snapshots versus like the whole thing. And then what is for the board, the future board, current board, what is the cadence for reviewing with the board where we're at, the touch bases for where we're at, and can we see that in the plan so that we know where that's coming, when that's coming? And if it's there, I'm sorry. This is a little overwhelming.
No, this is why there's two meetings, and also we want to make sure that the board has full understanding and questions are addressed. So thank you, and I think for anybody also listening, please send in your questions. We welcome them. It's been, I think, a big priority was building a shared plan, because many strategic plans are developed, presented, and then they don't do what they are intended to do, which is really change the system. And so that was a big, I would say, the most important thing in this process was to build a shared plan. And I think, I know that was achieved internally. I have seen many a plan that have been built, created, that led with a lot of very clear, SMART goals. We're going to close this gap. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And those plans did not realize the goals that they had. I have very strong belief in what I see in this plan in terms of addressing that pay cadence. And that's one of the things I heard from the board was really how do you change culture and climate in the district? And this was achieved in terms of the internal shifts of what it took to get here was not a Dr. Kilgotti's plan, Dr. Kincaid's plan. This is something that really was a collective effort. Do you want to add, there are a number of questions that I think I want to at least name.
I just want to say I agree with you. The difference that I see versus our Envision 308 is 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So I want to give you massive kudos. And I think the involvement of just everyone has been, even down to our committee meetings, and we had people that came to our committee meetings that gave feedback. I want to give you huge kudos.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to pick anything apart.
No, I'm not
It's
hearing that
just,
at all.
We're at a 30,000-foot view, and
Yeah.
you guys are so inside of it. It's like sports and activities, you know, and you know it, and we're just seeing it. We're like,
Yes.
whoa.
Yes. I want to just thank those of us who joined this evening. This may go a little longer, so for our guests who came tonight, if you want to, if you have an early start tomorrow, I want to give you permission. I know you have early starts tomorrow, so let's give our speakers a big round of applause. And our student board members as well. You got class tomorrow, or work tomorrow, so thank you all. Yes. Yeah. Dr. Kincaid, you want to speak?
But I would like to address some of your questions. So as Dr. Kilgotti mentioned, today is a draft, right? Like we wanted to come specifically with this stamped as draft because we wanted the feedback from everyone around this table, and that's why we literally are meeting tomorrow to start to process through. So the packet that was left at your station, that is the start to some of those kind of tangible things that you had asked and talked where, yep, there is a page just for Pillar 1, Year 1. So there is focused attention to be able to separate that out. As Teresa also mentioned, and I made sure we came to kind of the what's next slide, like what we have is the need for the strong level of detail for the work plan, which would include that RASCI of who's responsible, who's accountable. Absolutely, that is part of the work plan, which will be an internal document. You know, that's where we're getting the metrics to review. Now, as we kind of go through, like the what's next, the third one is then the public facing of how are we going to interact and be able to see what this plan even accomplishes.
So is that the dashboard that Dr. Waller referred to? Or is that something separate?
It's, so the dashboard is really the generator of that data. So today launched the vendor review of a new dashboard. We had 2 vendors in today. Andrea Parker, our Director of Research and Data, is leading a team through reviewing different vendors. So our goal is next month is to bring a recommendation similar to the process that Dr. Paul and her team led for our college and career readiness platform. So the data dashboard will then give us, and ideally that is one of the elements on the rubric, is will it then have public facing? That is our goal, is for our data dashboard to then have both internal and external reporting features.
So we will be looking for ways that the board, in the vendor review for an information system, specifically we've used a particular product till now. It's not serving our needs. We are looking for a product that would be able to say, okay, here's your strategic plan. Here are the metrics for, implementing the PACE framework, and then here is the progress on those related to this particular goal. Now, at the beginning of this conversation, one of the things that Teresa, Ms. Kamita spoke to was that some of these, when you look at our long-term goals, wellness, collaboration, let me pull it up here, but efficient, impactful supports for student learning. That's a vision. That's a shared vision. This is not just drawn out of a packet or, hey, let's look in some meaningful educational jargon of like what schools should have. And you know, I've heard many consultants say, you could just pull up a strategic plan and replicate it, right? No, this was a hard-fought word. I mean, I sat with parents who said, well, why does it say equity? Oh, it shouldn't say equity. It should say this. It should say that. We field tested it, right? So each one of these efficient impactful supports for student learning, where we will be in 3 years from now, we will still have this because we know the community prioritizes it. But what the goal and the metric behind what that looks like will change in 3 years because we'll have identified in year 1 things that support getting to that resource allocation. In year 2, improvements, and if funding changes, we're going to have even more difficult conversations. So those metrics have to be built together in relation to that. But you know, I know that there's a lot to cover tonight, but I do want to go back to this page, which is, that's a big win when you think about that shared vision as a community saying, here are what the community says is important for our school district, full stop. Now, within those, there's a lot to be unpacked, but what it does is it sets the vision for where we're going. Now comes the even harder work or more deliberate work of saying, okay, to get there, what are we going to do? And so what you heard tonight are those breakdowns. Another tension that we are working on, which the board will receive at the next meeting, was the outward-facing language, right? Internal-facing language, outward-facing language, layman's terms. I think about a school improvement plan. I'm going to use the example Wheatlands does. They have student-friendly language. You walk around the Wheatlands, you're going to see their school improvement plan. They have articulated their school improvement plan in student-friendly language. So students read it and they can say, oh, that's what we're doing this year, right?
That's awesome.
Very different than what the teacher school improvement plan is versus that. So those stages will come as part of this living document. You heard at the beginning also, part of the pressure of what we're trying to get to is establishing some of these key priorities. So what we can start to do is then in April, and if it has to take a little longer, it has to take a little longer because we want a good product. However, we do know that if we want to be able to arrive at something meaningful and purposeful that schools can then, because ultimately the school is a nucleus of change, not up here. This is about coordinating our resources to support our schools. So if the goal is to get something meaningful, relevant, and purposeful that schools can then react to in terms of building their plans, that's a win for the district. But you also couldn't have done it. We could have rushed the system that the district could have done in isolation and come to you in January in order to get to that goal. That wasn't as inclusive of the community's voice that our teachers' voice. So there's this tension, and so while it may have not have been as elegant as we would have liked in terms of the timing, I do think its purpose, which is to ensure that there was a common vision for our language and what our purpose was, where we're going, and then to be able to bring something to the board. And the board's been apprised of many of these things along the way. And where there is something that feels like it's missing, as you brought up, Dr. Murillo, anything like that I think is really important to note and not forget, because we want to make sure that the language, in terms of where it shows up, whether it's in an objective or in the pillars, is not in the pillars, in the priorities, is well articulated. So I'm learning the language. Thank you.
Yes. I think we're all learning. And then my last question, I promise, is that how does this crosswalk with the curriculum audit? And I'm asking that very specifically. Like, I know part of the answer, but I also know that the curriculum audit is being much talked about right now, and so I want to know, I know specifically that it was done very intentionally, but can you just kind of really synthesize
Great
that?
question. Or anybody on the team? There's a lot to be said here, so
There's
please.
a lot to say,
Yes.
but one of the biggest things that we've learned from the audit's recommendation is to spend really intentional time planning And that's what we've done this year, and being going slow to go fast, because we really need to take the findings from the audit all the way from, aligning practices when it comes to grading to
Job descriptions.
Resource allocation, collaboration. A lot of the things that you see is kind of like our non-negotiables that we're always paying attention to in our strategic plan is really a direct correlation to the findings we have gleaned from the audit.
Thank you.
So not only the planning, but also the audit drew attention to some more depth of analysis that was needed, specifically in special education, multilingual, and gifted education. So Dr. Dubiel and her teams have started some of that work this year, but as you can see reflected in the plan, that work needs to continue, and then recommendations from there. So not only the curriculum, very specific pieces, also you can see in resource management the connection to some of our processes for HR, but then also programmatically things that we want to address across the system.
I know that a lot of community members don't always get to see the level that the board does, but to see all the dots connecting is just very powerful and really cool. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. It really shows that this is really all about students and their success, and the path of getting there is not easy, but to dig in and do this hard work is, I hope, rewarding for everybody as well. And I'm just so looking forward to the future.
Study slide 9.
We're gonna get you a T-shirt with slide 9 on it there.
So,
Eugene.
I don't know, I really like slide.
Dominic has a question.
Oh, okay, it could be the back.
One more dot that we do need to connect that we did start to address in the last round of committee meetings is the state's plan. So tonight we've talked about our portrait, so our student at the center, to our school with our foundational practices of high quality instruction, equity and rightful presence, and our effective systems and teams, to our district built on our pillars and priorities. But then also when we come on March 17th, we'll also be bringing Vision 2030. So it's essentially the foundation of our state's strategic plan. So we wanted to make sure, say that again.
I said ours is better.
So we want to make sure we connect our students to our schools, to our district and our state. So we didn't want to bring that on top of all of this. We really wanted to focus on our district plan, but we will be bringing that on the 17th, just to be able to see that alignment also.
Dominic?
I don't have a question. It's more of an ask or a suggestion. When we have the outward facing, just to be very explicit, with special education and multilingual and gifted goals that connect those dots for people. As in this document, it's not necessarily, very obvious, but we do need to make sure that that's communicated well to the community. So.
In those 3 areas, the focus of this plan right now is in that deep analysis and creating a plan. So we don't want to jump into action before we've done the research and created the plan. So absolutely.
I just wanted to get that out there.
Yep.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Other reflections?
Thank you very much. All right, 10.1 action item, approval of 2 RTU units. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the purchase of the 2 Dalkin McQuay rooftop units to replace the failing Brokaw units in the total amount of $400,000, excluding labor.
Second.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.2, approval of high school English text selection. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the high school English text selection for an initial one-time cost of $70,390.67.
Second.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. 10.3, approval of career and college readiness vendor. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve School Links as the recommended college and career readiness vendor platform per the attached quote.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Before I do, for those at before I do, those at home, we got like a dedicated bunch here. Past 10 o'clock, so kudos to everybody out there. Motion to adjourn.
All in
Second.
favor?